Chapter 164. In the 6th hour, Lin Yi finally reached the 300th step. His essence realm had also reached the 8th level. Sword essence realm. Fist essence realm. Saber essence realm. Peak of the 3rd level of the creation realm. When he was about to continue, a voice came to him, reminding him that the time was up and whether he should continue. The voice was like a spring breeze, which did not disturb his cultivation and meditation at all. Of course, it was the seniors who created this magical world for the juniors to cultivate. They definitely wouldn't be interrupted when the junior disciples were cultivating and comprehending. Quit. Lin Yi opened his eyes. He responded softly. Continue. Continue my ass. He was a newcomer, just an ordinary genius expert. He only had 6 hours in a month. How could he have time to continue unless he was a true disciple? But he was not a true disciple. At this time, he was more expectant and curious about the sea of illusion. If he could really pass the sea of illusion and increase his cultivation time, his cultivation would be faster. As soon as he responded, his body was strangely transmitted away. When he reappeared, he was outside the transmission array in the Tianyao Square. How was the harvest? When the guard saw Lin Yi appear, he was shocked. He said faintly, as if he was talking to himself, "Great harvest." Lin Yi replied politely. The celestial realm was the pinnacle of martial arts, an existence that stood at the pinnacle of martial arts, so he naturally had to respect it. The sea of illusion is one of the ways to increase your cultivation time. The powerhouse guarding the place said indifferently. After that, he closed his eyes and fell into cultivation. Thank you, senior. A smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. He had heard Silent Soul talk about the sea of illusion. At that time, he was not very interested in the land of Holy Spirit, but now he knew the magic of the land of Holy Spirit. Naturally, he wanted to increase his cultivation time, so he had to go to the sea of illusion, or become a true disciple. At present, the sea of illusion was the most realistic. After leaving the transmission array, Lin Yi walked toward an altar on the edge of the square. This altar was the transmission array to the sea of illusion. Shungling Heaven Sect there were 3 forbidden areas. The 3 great forbidden lands were also the lands of the 3 great sage. These 3 places were the land of Saint Spirit, the sea of illusion, and the saint's tomb. In the land of the Saint Spirit, every disciple was given 6 hours to cultivate every month. The ocean of illusions had no restrictions, but the Saint Tomb was the most strictly guarded. This was the biggest secret of the Saint Spirit Heaven Sect for tens of thousands of years. Sigh, I failed again. Stop sighing. You're already on the 7th floor, and I'm still on the 6th. The 33rd level of the Sea of Illusions is too difficult. I really don't dare to imagine how eldest senior brother reached the 19th floor. The top 10 direct disciples are all above the 15th level. Compared to them, we are nothing. The top 10 direct disciples are indeed monstrous. I have no choice but to admit it. Outside the altar, there was a sea of people. However, this place was definitely lively. There were hundreds of experts here. They were either cultivating, exploring the sea of illusion, or watching the show. Most of the experts who came out of the sea of illusion sighed. He sighed at the magic and power of the sea of illusion. Greetings to Shuiyu. Greetings to senior sister Shuiyu. Greetings to Shuiyu. At this moment, countless powerhouses greeted everyone. Their voices were extremely respectful. Most of them were trying to please her. This was because Shuiyu is the only female direct disciple of the Tianyao Peak. She was also one of the top 10 goddesses of the Saint Spirit Heaven Sect. She was extremely beautiful and talented. She was not inferior to Ling Yang's. Such a woman had both looks and talent. There was no reason for people to not adore and love her. Her talent made countless men feel ashamed. Her appearance made countless women jealous. She was peerless and otherworldly. She was like a god descending from the 9 heavens. Yes, there's a beauty in the north. She's peerless and independent. Lin Yi looked in the direction of the voice. When he saw a beautiful and otherworldly woman, his heart trembled. Otherworldly and otherworldly. This was Lin Yi's description. She was in a white dress with a light veil fluttering in the wind. She was like a goddess. Although her beautiful face was cold. It gave off an otherworldly and holy feeling. His heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. He muttered to himself. As he spoke, he retracted his gaze and walked towards the altar, preparing to enter the sea of illusion. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a gaze on him. Lin Yi realized that the owner of the gaze was Shui Yu's. Shui Yu looked at Lin Yi. She couldn't help but frown. Although Lin Yi's voice was very soft, everyone present was an expert. Even if they didn't use their ears, they could hear his voice with their divine consciousness. Naturally, Shui Yu also heard Lin Yi's words. There were countless people who praised her for her beauty and countless people who regarded her as a goddess. However, very few people praised her like Lin Yi did. She could feel that the young man was praising her from the bottom of his heart. However, when she saw Lin Yi, she realized that Lin Yi was ordinary. She couldn't help but feel disappointed. Shui Yu, so you're here. Just then, a voice sounded and reached Shui Yu's ears, including the experts near the altar. Instantly, countless experts were shocked. They didn't know who dared to call Shui Yu's real name. Generally speaking, those who saw Shui Yu would address her as Shui Yu's true disciple or senior sister Shui Yu. Even more than half of the Saint Spirit Heavenly Sect's core disciples addressed Shui Yu as senior sister. Now, someone actually addressed Shui Yu as Shui Yu. Judging from the way he addressed her, he seemed to be very familiar and even close to her. Mingqing's true disciple of the Luoyan Peak. Just because he has some strength, he came to our Tianyao Peak to show off. I didn't expect Chun Mingqing to chase senior sister Shui Yu all the way to the Tianyao Peak. You're ignorant. He comes to the Tianyao Peak often. Senior sister Shui Yu is our Tianyao Peak's goddess. How could Chun Mingqing snatch her away? I heard that senior sister Shui Yu doesn't even care about Chun Mingqing. Near the altar, countless experts from the Tianyao Peak looked in the direction of the voice. They realized that the person who called out Shui Yu's real name was Mingqing's true disciple from the Luoyan Peak. Instantly, discussions broke out. From the discussions, it was obvious that they didn't like Chun Mingqing. However, they couldn't do anything to Chun Mingqing. Yeah, Shui Yu nodded. She didn't show any emotion. She didn't want to pay attention to Chun Mingqing, nor did she want to offend him. She also retracted her gaze from the ordinary young man. However, she didn't expect that her gaze would bring about a devastating disaster to the young man. Shui Yu knows him. Chun Mingqing had already noticed that Shui Yu was looking at Lin Yi. He was also curious as to why an ordinary young man was worthy of Shui Yu's attention. At the same time, a trace of killing intent rose in his heart. As long as it was a man who could attract Shui Yu's gaze, he would eliminate them. Of course, he didn't dare to do anything to those who were stronger than him. He could only pretend that he didn't see them or pretend to be generous. Chapter 165. I don't know him. Shui Yu was taken aback. She immediately understood that she had brought trouble to her ordinary junior brother. She couldn't help but feel a trace of guilt. However, in this world where the strong were respected, the weak would be trampled and even lose their lives. After saying that, she, who had originally planned to explore the sea of illusion, turned around to leave. She wanted to divert Chun Mingqing's attention. Stop. Chun Mingqing naturally saw through Shui Yu's thoughts. The more Shui Yu acted like this, the stronger the killing intent in his heart. With a cold snort, he shouted, "Aren't you bored?" Shui Yu knew that she still couldn't divert Chun Mingqing's attention. She couldn't help but shake her head. At the same time, she stopped and turned to look at Chun Mingqing. It's indeed a little boring. Moreover, I don't like that ant. A smile appeared on Chun Mingqing's face. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the youth in the distance. Step by step, he walked toward the youth. The youth was originally going to the altar to enter the sea of illusion, but he was stopped by Lin Fan. He had a smile on his face, but there was a trace of bitterness at the corner of his mouth. He was really unlucky. He couldn't even drink water. Coming out of the Spirit True courtyard, he met Zhou Cheng and the others. Coming out of the Saint Spirit Land, he met this true disciple Mingqing. Encountering two incidents in one day, who exactly did he find to provoke? Senior brother, why did you stop me? Lin Yi turned to look at Chun Mingqing and asked. He was calm and collected, without the restraint and fear of an ordinary expert facing a true disciple. At this moment, it was as if he was the true disciple and Chun Mingqing was an ordinary expert. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Ordinary, ordinary. There was a trace of delicateness in his quiet demeanor. His scholarly aura couldn't be associated with an expert. It's nothing. I just don't like you. Chun Mingqing was startled by Lin Yi's performance. Shouldn't the other party be afraid of him? Why didn't the other party look afraid at all? Instead, he made himself look passive. The more it was like this, the more unhappy he felt. True disciples of the Saint Spirit Heavenly Sect had a high status. Status and position represented talent and strength. He didn't need a reason or excuse to teach an ordinary expert a lesson. Sigh, true disciples are really powerful. It's not that the true disciples are strong, it's just that he's too weak. This is a world where the strong are respected. The weak will be trampled on. This junior brother is out of luck. No matter what, he is a member of Tianyao Peak. Unfortunately, his cultivation is too weak, and he could only be taught a lesson by Chun Mingqing. I hope he is lucky enough to survive. In the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect, the people that one cannot afford to offend the most are the personal disciples. Looking at Chun Mingqing's posture, the experts of Celestial Light Peak shook their heads helplessly. He knew that Chun Mingqing was going to teach this expert of his Tianyao Peak a lesson. In the entire Tianyao Peak, only the few true princes and the most powerful creation realm experts did not fear Chun Mingqing. As for the rest, they did not dare to provoke him. Now that Lin Yi was called out by Chun Mingqing, it was Lin Yi's bad luck. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of powerhouses were watching from afar. Oh, you don't like me? What a coincidence, I don't like you either. Lin Yi had a smile on his face. He looked as if he had just realized something. He spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner. After he finished speaking, he looked at Chun Mingqing with a troubled expression, as if he did not know how to solve the problem. He had played it down. However, the hundreds and thousands of powerhouses present were shocked. Everyone's mouths were wide open, and their eyeballs were about to fall out. They did not expect this ordinary youth to be so arrogant and dare to look down on Chun Mingqing. He even slapped Chun Mingqing's face hard. You don't like me, but I don't like you either. You are a personal disciple, but so what? I still don't like you. Do you think that I have to like you just because you are a personal disciple? Shock. Everyone was shocked. Even Chun Mingqing was stunned. Lin Yi's answer was completely beyond his imagination. From the beginning to the end, he never thought that someone would provoke him, let alone that an ordinary youth would dare to disobey him. Blood Moon True Prince's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of shock. However, this trace of shock disappeared in a flash. In her opinion, this youth was very foolish and was simply courting death. Kneel down and accept your death. Chun Mingqing's face was filled with rage. It was simply a disgrace to be provoked by a youth in front of hundreds and thousands of powerhouses. How could a giant dragon be provoked by an ant? Moron, ignorant. You must be hallucinating. Lin Yi did not panic at all in the face of Chun Mingqing's anger. Instead, he was even calmer. He looked at Chun Mingqing coldly and said indifferently. This time, he directly scolded Chun Mingqing. He treated Chun Mingqing as an ignorant moron, asking him to kneel down and accept his death. If this was not hallucinating, what was it? It's over. It's over. When the powerhouses of Tianyao Peak saw Lin Yi and Chun Mingqing going against each other, they immediately understood that Lin Yi was finished. For a moment, many powerhouses looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a fool. If he was not a fool, why would he go against Chun Mingqing? Couldn't he be a coward? He might even have a chance to live. But Lin Yi just had to pretend. Now, Chun Mingqing would definitely pull out Lin Yi's tendons and skin him alive. Die! Chun Mingqing was furious. He activated the power of creation and immediately displayed his cultivation at the peak of LV8 creation realm. In front of the unparalleled power of creation, he was the master of everything within 1,000 meters. He threw out a punch. He was at the peak of LV8 creation realm and a true disciple of the Shengling Heaven sect. This punch was invincible among those of the same level. The power directly pierced through the space. Crack, the destructive power crushed the space. In front of the power of this punch, it gave people a feeling that it could destroy heaven and earth. Not to mention an ordinary youth. Even a peak LV9 Creation Realm powerhouse would not dare to take this punch. Being a true disciple was not a joke. All the powerhouses trembled when they saw this punch. They admitted that they could not take this punch. Everyone knew that Lin Yi was really finished this time. Not even his bones remained. And when they looked at Lin Yi again, they saw that he was still standing on the same spot and did not move at all. This scene shocked countless powerhouses. They immediately understood that Lin Yi was so shocked by Chun Mingqing's destructive punch that he did not even have the reaction to resist or dodge. In a thousandth of a second, Chun Mingqing's destructive punch penetrated the space and blasted in front of Lin Yi. Just as Lin Yi was about to be blasted into smithereens, Lin Yi moved. That's right, he just moved. Lin Yi raised his hand and threw a punch. The overbearing fist radiance was like the arrival of a celestial emperor. It met Chun Mingqing's fist radiance head-on. The space distorted, shattered, and recovered in an instant. Chapter 166. The unparalleled fist radiance was accompanied by destructive fist intent. When the two fist radiances collided, the space immediately cracked, as if there was a huge explosion. Amidst the endless fist radiance, Lin Yi's body trembled as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, his body retreated rapidly. The third level of the Heavenly Emperor Fist and his true Yuan, which was comparable to the sixth level of the Creation Realm, was still unable to withstand Chun Mingqing's punch. The strength of a legacy disciple was indeed not to be underestimated. This punch had caused him to suffer a great injury. His arm was directly smashed into pieces. The blood turned into a curtain of blood that was extremely dazzling. Oof. Chun Mingqing's face revealed a trace of arrogance and pride. However, he was also shocked. Even an ordinary expert at the 8th level of the Creation Realm would not be able to withstand his punch. He did not expect that this seemingly ordinary youth would be able to withstand it, even though he was seriously injured. Most importantly, this youth was only 16 or 17 years old. His cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Creation Realm. If a 16 or 17-year-old youth was able to reach the 3rd level of the Creation Realm, what was he if not a monster? Gradually, he realized a serious problem. That was, this seemingly ordinary young man was, in fact, a monstrous and heaven-defying genius. His killing intent was getting stronger. If he did not get rid of this youth today, he might become a problem in the future. And near the altar, there were hundreds and thousands of experts. All of them were shocked. They did not expect Lin Yi to survive Chun Mingqing's attack. Furthermore, he was only injured. How strong and heaven-defying was he? A 3rd-stage Creation Realm martial artist could fight against a direct disciple at the peak of the 8th stage of Creation Realm. At this moment, they all understood. This seemingly ordinary young man was, in fact, a monster. In fact, his talent was not much weaker than that of a legacy disciple. However, now that Lin Yi's arm was crippled, it would greatly reduce his future cultivation and battle. It was indeed a pity. Legacy disciple. Just SOSO. Lin Yi stabilized his body, and his shattered arm recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. It recovered to its original state, and there was not even a scar on it. If it was not for the tragic appearance just now, no one would believe that Lin Yi's arm had been shattered. This scene shocked all the experts present. Even Chun Mingqing was shocked. His shattered arm instantly recovered to its original state. If he hadn't witnessed this heaven-defying scene with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Self-healing body. Not far away, Shui was also incomparably shocked when she saw the scene just now. They were shocked by Lin Yi's strength, but they were even more shocked by his self-healing body. With such a physique, he was completely immortal. He was like a cockroach that could not be killed. Do you think you're powerful just because you didn't die from that punch? I have thousands of ways to crush an ant like you to death. When Chun Mingqing heard Lin Yi's words, the anger in his heart burned again. This was clearly looking down on him. a true disciple. He didn't think that Lin Yi could catch that punch. Now that Lin Yi had caught it, he also didn't think that Lin Yi was his opponent. He was just a youth at the third level of the creation realm. He could easily kill him with a wave of his hand. Oh, is that so? Then let me experience the strength of a true disciple. You better not disappoint me. Otherwise, I don't mind erasing an ant. The smile on Lin Yi's face grew wider and wider. However, that voice was shocking. His entire person was completely different from before. At this moment, he didn't look like a thin youth at all. Instead, he looked like a peerless expert. The aura on his body exploded. His cultivation was at the third level of the creation realm, but he had the power of the seventh or eighth level of the creation realm. The Starry Sky Divine Art and Divine Dragon 9 transformations were activated at the same time. He could use his divine telekinesis to attack at any time. Boom! With a flap of the wings of space, his entire body disappeared. When he reappeared, Lin Yi was already in front of Chun Mingqing. He punched out fiercely, causing the space to distort and shatter. The punch was about to land on Chun Mingqing. Chun Mingqing reacted instantly and punched out. The two fists collided, causing a destructive aftershock. This time, Chun Mingqing was shaken by Lin Yi and retreated a few steps before stabilizing his body. That was because Lin Yi's speed was almost instantaneous. There was no time for him to react at all. By the time he reacted, Lin Yi's fist was already in front of him. It was unrealistic for him to unleash a destructive attack, so he could only passively resist. Boom! Boom! In an instant in the square, the two figures kept flickering, overlapping, and separating. The sound of destructive collisions rang out non-stop. Countless experts quickly retreated, not daring to get close to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Damn it! In just 10 breaths, the two had already thrown out hundreds of punches. Chun Mingqing was completely passive and was instantly furious. If this continued, even if he killed Lin Yi, he would still lose face. As a true disciple, he was led by the nose by an ordinary expert at the third level of the creation realm. It was indeed embarrassing. With a roar, the power of creation at the peak of the 8th level of the creation realm burst out. The full force attack of the 8th level of the creation realm was enough to destroy all space. Puff! In the air, Lin Yi's body trembled. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The difference in cultivation realm was too great. No matter how monstrous one was, it was difficult to make up for it. God extinction. Go to hell. Chun Mingqing took the initiative. As monstrous and powerful as he was, he did not dare to underestimate Lin Yi. Taking advantage of the moment when Lin Yi retreated, Chun Mingqing waved his hands and executed a supreme heaven-class martial technique. The supreme heaven-class martial technique was coupled with the means of a genius at the 8th level of the creation realm. This attack caused the entire space to tremble. A destructive ray of light cut through the space and headed straight for Lin Yi. All the experts were shocked when they saw Chun Mingqing use a peerless heaven-ranked martial skill. This time, Lin Yi was done for. He was definitely done for. The experts of the Celestial Light Peak all felt that it was a pity. If Lin Yi was given a few more years, the Tianyao Peak might have another true disciple. However, Chun Mingqing was determined to eliminate Lin Yi in the current situation. You're too weak. Let's end this. Lin Yi, who was flying backward, stopped strangely. Looking at the incoming destructive attack of the god extinction, his face was as calm as before, without the slightest hint of panic. He curled his lips and said nonchalantly, he wanted to test his own strength by fighting with Chun Mingqing, a true disciple. However, his cultivation was too low and was far from Chun Mingqing's. In terms of cultivation, he was no match for Chun Mingqing. However, he was confident that he could deal with Chun Mingqing. As he spoke, he used his divine thought. The divine thought attack, Heavenly Heart Pierce, was executed. At the same time, the Sage-class martial technique, Sky-Destroying Finger, was also executed. Suddenly, an unparalleled finger force pierced through the space. Sky-Destroying Finger pierced through the space and ignored the distance. In an instant, it arrived in front of Chun Mingqing. Chun Mingqing's face was filled with pain, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness and despair. Outsiders did not know what had happened, but he knew. His consciousness was under a destructive attack, and he was in a daze. Facing the finger force of sky-destroying finger, he had lost the chance to resist. Pust, the finger force pierced through Chun Mingqing's glabella. Chun Mingqing spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell rapidly. Chapter 167. The destructive god, slaying absolute, moved tore through the space and landed in front of Lin Yi. However, at this moment, a Tai Chi shield appeared in front of Lin Yi. The unparalleled attack landed on the Tai Chi shield, causing it to tremble nonstop. However, it still managed to block Chun Mingqing's attack. On the other hand, Chun Mingqing's vitality was drained away by Lin Yi's sky-destroying finger. He fell heavily to the ground and couldn't be more dead. Chun Mingqing, a true disciple of Luoyan Peak, had died. He had died in the hands of an ordinary young man from Tianyao Peak. They were shocked and dumbfounded. At this moment, countless experts from Tianyao Peak in the square were in a state of shock. Their eyeballs were about to fly out. They had never expected that Lin Yi, who was clearly in a desperate situation, would be able to reverse the situation in an instant and kill Chun Mingqing with one finger. This reversal was too shocking. Chun Mingqing was a true disciple who was at the 8th level of the creation realm. Just his identity as a true disciple meant that his talent was terrifying. However, they had never expected that Chun Mingqing would be killed by an ordinary-looking young man from Tianyao Peak who was only at the 3rd level of the creation realm. In everyone's eyes, whether it was Lin Yi's talent or cultivation, he was a far cry from Chun Mingqing. What a waste of time. Lin Yi landed and the wings of space disappeared. He glanced at Chun Mingqing's corpse and said nonchalantly. As he spoke, he walked towards the teleportation array on the altar. Soon, Lin Yi's figure disappeared from the teleportation array. Hundreds of experts in the square came to their senses at this moment. What a terrifying finger. He killed Chun Mingqing with one finger. His defense is really amazing. He is at the peak of the 3rd level of the creation realm and killed someone at the peak of the 8th level of the creation realm. He is definitely at the level of a true disciple. In terms of talent, he is definitely comparable to the top 10 true disciples. He is only 17 years old and is already so terrifying. I can't imagine what will happen in a few years. Tianyao Peak will definitely have another true disciple who is comparable to true Master Ling Yang. He's in trouble. After killing true Sun Mingqing, Luoyan Peak will definitely not let this matter rest. His name is Lin Yi. Today, he killed senior brother Ling Ao and Zhou Cheng. The square was in an uproar. At the same time, someone recounted what had happened that day. This time, countless experts were even more shocked. That thin and ordinary-looking young man was like a scholar, but his image was deeply engraved in the hearts of countless experts. They knew that if they treated that young man as an ordinary young man, they would not be far from death. At this moment, countless powerful beings did not leave. This was because they wanted to see the young man's results in the sea of illusion. I made a mistake. In the distance, Blood Moon's true son retracted his gaze. He muttered to himself. The scene that had just happened had also shocked her. She didn't expect that this seemingly ordinary youth would be so monstrous. Chun Mingqing was a complete joke in front of him. His only flaw was that he was too low-key. It was easy to fool people by pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Sea of Illusion, a boundless sea. However, this was not a real sea, but a sea created by the Sea of Illusion. Upon entering this sea, there would be endless illusions. Whoosh, Lin Yi's figure appeared in front of the Sea of Illusion. On the sea, there were 33 islands. Every island was less than 1,000 meters apart. This distance could be traversed in the blink of an eye for an expert flying in the air. However, Lin Yi discovered that every island was separated by a terrifying illusion. Soul attack, illusion attack, will attack, divine sense attack. It's indeed terrifying. As a divine spiritual sorcerer at the peak of rank 44, Lin Yi naturally saw the situation here at a glance. This sea of illusion was completely a test of an expert's will, soul, and divine sense. If one was weak, no matter how strong one's martial cultivation was, they would not be able to pass through these islands. The soul-suppressing cauldron sensed something. At this time, Bill Yuo, who had been sleeping, communicated with Lin Yi. At the same time, Lin Yi also noticed that the soul-suppressing cauldron in his sea of consciousness was moving. This kind of movement seemed to be happy. In other words, in this sea of illusion, there was something that the soul-suppressing cauldron liked. For a moment, Lin Yi couldn't help but look forward to it. His figure flashed and flew toward the first island. As soon as he flew, he felt a terrifying soul attack. However, with his current level of divine sense, this soul attack was completely ignored. Besides, the soul-suppressing cauldron was in his sea of consciousness, and all soul attacks were blocked outside. It could even devour the invading soul. Landing on the island, Lin Yi suddenly entered an illusion. Rather than an illusion, it was better to say that it was a nightmare, the most terrifying nightmare. "Sir, it's you." In this illusion, Lin Yi saw Sir. He saw Sir walking toward him with a smile. Soon, Sir came in front of Lin Yi. But as soon as he walked in front of Lin Yi, Sir turned into a destructive attack and blasted toward Lin Yi. The speed was almost beyond the line of sight. Humph! Lin Yi snorted coldly and clapped with one hand. A terrifying attack went up. Boom! There was an explosion. Sir's figure disappeared. On the island, everything was nothingness. The illusion is indeed terrifying, Lin Yi said to himself. Just now, the moment he saw Sir, he knew that he had an illusion. Because Sir was no longer there, and Sir was just a chess piece arranged in his previous life. Coupled with his unparalleled divine sense and will, this illusion couldn't affect him at all. However, he wanted to solve the illusion in the simplest way. That was to beat him at his own game, wait for the illusion to come, and solve it when it was unprepared. Lin Yi, the first island, passed. Outside the sea of illusion, at the edge of the altar, there was a huge crystal pillar in the middle of the room. There were countless names engraved on the pillar. These names were all geniuses who had good results in the sea of illusion. Only those who were famous could be engraved on the crystal pillar. The condition was to be a genius who could pass 3 islands at once, or an expert who could pass the 8th island with the best result. Every person who entered the sea of illusion, as long as they passed, would be announced here. He is indeed a genius. He passed the first island so quickly. Indeed, many geniuses had to pass the first island several times. Eldest senior brother seems to have reached the 6th island in the sea of illusion. Not to mention eldest senior brother, he is the first genius of the Shengling Heaven sect in 1,000 years. I wonder what level this Lin Yi can reach. When the experts near the altar saw that Lin Yi had successfully passed through the first island of the sea of illusion, they immediately started discussing. After all, Lin Yi had just killed a true disciple. Although he was young and his cultivation was low, his strength was terrifying. Now, countless experts were curious about Lin Yi's success in the sea of illusion. Moreover, as time passed, the news of Chun Mingqing being killed by Lin Yi spread, and countless experts from the Tianyao Peak came here. Chapter 168. Whoosh! After passing through the first island in the sea of illusion, Lin Yi did not stop at all. Instead, he flew towards the second island. Lin Yi basically ignored the magical soul attack of the sea of illusion. He covered the distance of 1,000 meters in an instant. Entering the second island, Lin Yi entered the illusion again. However, soon, Lin Yi broke the illusion. It could even be said that the illusion here did not affect him at all. He was like a bystander, seeing through everything in the illusion and was not affected at all. The second island passed. The third island passed. The fourth island passed. The fifth island passed. In less than 15 minutes, Lin Yi passed through 4 islands in a row and passed the 5th island. Now, Lin Yi stopped on the 6th island, because during the time in the sea of illusion, his divine senses at the peak of level 44 had reached the critical point and was about to break through. If his divine senses reached level 45, his divine senses alone would be comparable to the creation realm. Coupled with the mysterious and powerful means of the divine spiritual sorcerer, Even if he was only a level 45 divine spiritual sorcerer, he would be able to kill a genius at the third or fourth level of the creation realm. Of course, if his divine senses could reach level 50, it would be comparable to the celestial being realm. The Sea of Illusions brought him great expectations, because here he could temper his divine senses and quickly improve them. He passed the fifth island. What a genius. Is he going to be on par with Senior Brother? Impossible. He stayed on the sixth island for a long time and did not move. Maybe he is in danger. Indeed, he passed the first few islands in a few breaths. It's worth looking forward to. If he really passes this island, then his result in the Sea of Illusion will be on par with Senior Brother's result in the first time. This is the honor of our Tianyao peak. In front of the altar in the square. At this moment, thousands of experts had gathered, and there were also some super geniuses and even a few successor disciples. For a moment, it was very lively here. Seeing Lin Yi pass through 5 islands in 15 minutes, they were all shocked. If Lin Yi passed through the 6th island, then the result of Lin Ye's first attempt at the Sea of Illusion was the same as the result of the eldest Senior Brother's first attempt at the Sea of Illusion. Although he was not necessarily as monstrous as the eldest Senior Brother, at least it showed that Lin Yi was not simple. Time passed by, second by second. A full 15 minutes passed. 15 minutes later, Lin Yi was still on the 6th island. He didn't pass, but he didn't fail either. This made all the experts curious and puzzled. Level 45 Divine Will breakthrough. On the 6th island of the Sea of Illusion, Lin Ye's face lit up with excitement. After 15 minutes of hard work, he finally broke through the shackles of divine telekinesis and reached level 45. Logically speaking, the level 45 spiritual force was equivalent to the first or second tier of the creation realm. However, Lin Yi cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Tao, and his spiritual force was extremely powerful. At this moment, his spiritual force was equivalent to the third or fourth tier of the creation realm. Level 44 divine telekinesis was 1 level lower than level 45. However, this gap was like the 9th level of the void refinement realm and the first level of the creation realm. There was a natural chasm between the two. At this moment, Lin Yi had crossed this natural chasm. His spiritual force was more than 100 times stronger than before. Your spiritual force is stronger now, the further you pass through the Sea of Illusion. Biluo was also happy for Lin Yi. In fact, the stronger Lin Yi's spiritual force was, the stronger Biluo was. I like to see how strong I can be, Lin Yi muttered to himself. His spiritual force directly destroyed the illusion of the 6th island. He passed the 6th island. He passed the 6th island. This news was displayed on the crystal pillar. There were already countless experts paying attention to this place. The moment the news spread, the scene was like a bomb that had been detonated, and it immediately boiled over. There were countless discussions. The 6th island was not very high. However, this was Lin Ye's first time in the Sea of Illusion. He had reached the 6th island on his first try and was already on par with their eldest Senior Brother. Moreover, Lin Yi was only 17 years old and was at the 3rd level of the creation realm. With such a young age and cultivation strength, coupled with his current results in the Sea of Illusion, countless experts immediately compared Lin Yi to their eldest Senior Brother. He really reached the 6th island on his first try. Eldest Senior Brother's first attempt at the Sea of Illusion was the 6th island. Sigh, comparisons are odious. I passed the first island on my 16th try. 90% of the people in the Shengling Heaven sect only passed the first island after a few tries. Lin Yi, this name will be remembered by countless geniuses. His strength, age, and talent are definitely a true disciple. It's already the 6th island. I don't know if he can pass the 7th island. It's difficult. It's very difficult. Eldest Senior Brother stopped at the 7th island. There was a lot of discussion near the altar in the square. Countless geniuses were envious and jealous. Countless female geniuses had looks of admiration in their eyes. Even Blood Moon True's son, who was not far away, was surprised by Lin Ye's performance. She had read countless people and rarely made a mistake. She did not expect that she would make a mistake this time. It was not her fault. It was Lin Ye's fault for looking too ordinary. He had the aura of a rank 1 scholar and looked like a scholar. It was impossible to associate him with an expert or a monster. While countless experts were shocked, an even more shocking scene was about to happen. Lin Yi, the 7th island, passed. Lin Yi, the 8th island, passed. Lin Yi, the 9th island, passed. He broke the record of the past 3,000 years. Lin Yi, the 10th island, passed. Lin Yi, the 11th island, passed. He broke the record of the past 5,000 years. Lin Yi, the 12th island, passed. Lin Yi, the 13th island, passed. Lin Yi, the 14th island, passed. He broke the record of the past 10,000 years. Messages kept coming out from the crystal pillars. In just 15 minutes, Lin Yi had successfully passed 8 islands and was now on the 15th island. Even if he did not pass the 15th island, he had broken the record of the Shengling heavenly sect for the past 10,000 years. In the past 10,000 years, he was the first person to reach the 14th island on his first try. Tremors, violent tremors. The entire Tianyao Peak was in an uproar. Even the peak masters of the other 9 peaks were shocked. Senior brother Ling Tianli's achievement in the Ocean of Illusion was much weaker than Lin Ye's. If they had not seen the news from the Ocean of Illusion, they would not have believed that it was true. He had reached the 14th island on his first try. Now Lin Yi was on the 15th island. However, on the 15th island, Lin Yi was the same as before. He did not fail, nor did he pass. The more this was the case, the more the experts outside were looking forward to it. This was because after pausing for a while, Lin Yi had madly charged from the 6th island to the 15th island. Now that he was pausing in the hearts of countless experts, Lin Yi was brewing. Chapter 169. On the 15th island in the Sea of Illusion, Lin Yi sat cross-legged. His face was calm. Around him, there were layers of illusions that constantly harassed him. However, he ignored them, because his heart was as clear as a mirror, and the soul suppression cauldron in his sea of consciousness suppressed everything. Lin Yi could see everything clearly. The illusions around him were a complete joke. The reason why he did not break the illusions, because he had a breakthrough now. Yes, it was a breakthrough. Level 45 divine thought had reached the peak limit. He could only break through this threshold and reach level 46 divine thought. In the Sea of Illusion, his divine thought was constantly being tempered and improved. Here, his divine thought cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. In just a quarter of an hour, his divine thought had reached the peak of level 45 from the early stage. Now it was time to break through. If he broke through the illusions, he would have to enter the 16th island. Although the 16th island might not affect him, he would not miss the slightest opportunity to break through. A long night might bring trouble. He did not expect the Sea of Illusion to be of such great help to him. Normally, it would take at least a few months or even longer to raise one's divine thought by 1 level. Here, he could raise his divine thought in just a quarter of an hour. Like a blade, unparalleled divine soul. Like an army, break through. Lin Yi operated the 3,000 heavenly Tao and mobilized his divine thought. The soul suppression cauldron was also operating at this moment. It quickly devoured the soul attacks in the Sea of Illusion, tempered his divine thought, and hit the critical point of level 45 divine thought. Time passed by minute. It was a full hour. Lin Ye's face was filled with joy. His divine thought had broken through level 45 and reached level 46. At this moment, he had a terrifying level 46 divine thought. Just as divine thought alone was enough to rival LV5 or LV6 creation realm expert. Break, Lin Yi shouted as his divine thought broke through. Unparalleled divine thought spread out. Suddenly, the endless illusions on the island disappeared. Sea of Illusion, 15th island, passed. With a flash, he headed toward the 16th island. In the square outside the illusory realm, countless experts were looking at the crystal pillar. However, 2 hours had passed, and Lin Yi still did not move. He did not fail, nor did he pass. This puzzled all the experts present. A full 2 hours passed. A message came from the top of the crystal pillar. Lin Yi, 15th Island, pass. This voice seemed to shake the souls of the experts present. Suddenly, countless experts became excited. It was as if the one who had passed the 15th island wasn't Lin Yi, but them. He passed, he really passed. 15 islands, pass. Lin Yi is indeed a monster. He passed the 15th island just like that. The 15th island. 95% of the Shengling heavenly sex experts are unable to reach it in their entire lives, but he reached it on his first try. This is the difference between a monster and an ordinary expert. Look, he has passed the 16th island. What a fast speed. It only took a few seconds to pass through the 16th island. Shock. Complete shock. All the experts were looking at the top of the crystal pillar. On the crystal pillar, Lin Yi's message kept coming out through the sea of illusion. This scene made all the experts rub their eyes, thinking that they were hallucinating. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it was true. Lin Yi, 17th Island, pass. Lin Yi, 18th Island, pass. Lin Yi, 19th Island, pass. Lin Yi, 26th Island, pass. As time went by, Lin Yi continued to pass through the islands in the sea of illusion, heading for higher and farther islands. The 23rd island was the limit of the Shengling heavenly sect. The 23rd island was the highest in the entire Shengling heavenly sect. However, Lin Yi reached the 26th island on his first try. He had completely broken the record in the history of the Sea of Illusion. At this moment, all the experts in the Tianyao Peak were shocked. The entire core of the Shengling heavenly sect was also shocked. All of them were paying attention to what was happening in the Sea of Illusion. They want to know where Lin Yi's limit was and what was on the 33 islands in the Sea of Illusion. In the afternoon of this day, it had been 10 hours since Lin Yi entered the Sea of Illusion. Now, Lin Yi was on the 32nd island in the Sea of Illusion. Since he entered the Sea of Illusion, he was like a hot knife through butter, advancing courageously in an extremely fast speed. Of course, except for the 3 pauses. Not bad. Lin Yi paused 3 times on the island, each time for a long time. These 3 times, he broke through on the island. On the 32nd island, Lin Yi was also breaking through. At this moment, Lin Yi's divine will had reached the peak of the 47th level, only 1 step away from the 48th level. Breakthrough, I must break through. Lin Yi muttered to himself. His face was resolute. The 32nd island in the Sea of Illusion was extremely terrifying. Soul attacks were almost destructive. Even his divine will at the peak of the 47th level felt a huge pressure here. If he was not careful, his divine would be destroyed. Even the soul suppression cauldron could not withstand it. If he did not break through, he would not be able to break through the illusion on the 32nd island, let alone the illusion on the 33rd island. He was only 1 step away from the 33rd island. He did not want to miss it. Breaking through was the only way now. Then let's go crazy for once. Break through. In the sea of consciousness, Bill Yuo's voice sounded. The stronger Lin Yi's divine will was, the stronger she was. Now, if Lin Yi wanted to reach the 33rd island, his divine will could only break through to the 48th level. The soul suppression cauldron was like a person. Its emotions fluctuated greatly. The closer he got to the 33rd island, the greater the soul suppression cauldron's movements. Divine will, divine soul, and mind. A person could not live without a divine soul. Without a soul, he was a walking corpse. When one's divine will was strong to a certain extent, he could be immortal. However, the cultivation of divine will was extremely difficult. It was 1,000 times more difficult than breaking through martial arts. In this world, there might not be one divine will master in 10,000. It was rare to see one divine will genius in 10,000. This was also the key reason why divine will masters were rare and mysterious. His time passed by minute. 2 hours passed by, and Lin Yi sat cross-legged on the spot, operating the 3,000 heavenly Tao and mobilizing his divine will. His whole person was like a statue, motionless. But on the island, the endless illusion quickly distorted. In the air, there was a hissing sound. The invisible divine will distorted the space, and a terrifying scene appeared. 1 mile, 2 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles, a full 300 miles. Lin Ye's divine will, with him as the center, was affected by the terrifying impact within 300 miles. Within these 300 miles, even without using his eyes, he could control every movement here. Chapter 170. Bang! On the 32nd island in the Sea of Illusion, there was a slight sound in the air. After the sound, everything on the island was the same as it was before. Lin Yi opened his eyes. His gaze was like lightning. His body exuded a mysterious aura, giving people a feeling of unfathomable. His divine will had broken through to the peak of the 47th level and smoothly reached the 48th level. The 48th level of divine will was comparable to an 8th level creation realm expert. In other words, Lin Yi could kill an 8th level creation realm expert with his divine will even if he didn't use any martial techniques. His divine will was 100 times stronger than before. The illusion on the 32nd island collapsed under his unparalleled divine will. I can go to the 33rd island now. I'm really curious. I wonder what's on the 33rd island. Biluo's voice rang in Lin Ye's sea of consciousness. She was indeed curious. Not only her, but Lin Yi was also curious and looking forward to it. Something that could make a treasure like the soul suppression cauldron move was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, this place was the end of the Sea of Illusion. In the history of the Shengling Heaven sect, no one had reached the 24th island, let alone the 33rd island. Such a magical place. The things that existed there must be magical. Let's go. Lin Ye's figure flashed, and his body strangely disappeared. His entire body was almost completely integrated into the space. Wherever his divine will was, his body would be there at the same time. It was comparable to teleportation. In an instant, he passed through the endless soul attacks and appeared on the 33rd island. No one had set foot on this island. He was the first person to come here. This island was no different from the previous 32 islands. The only difference was that there was no illusion on this island. There were no illusions, no hallucinations. However, there was a folding fan in the center of the island. The folding fan was huge, at least 100 meters tall and wide. It was unknown what material it was made of. It exuded a magical aura that contained unparalleled soul attacks and willpower attacks. In other words, the entire Sea of Illusion was centered around it. All the soul attacks were emitted from the folding fan. A divine will treasure. A real divine will treasure. Why would the heaven will fan appear here? How could this be? In the Sea of Consciousness, Biluo's voice was extremely excited. This was the first time Lin Yi had seen Biluo so excited. However, Biluo's tone was full of confusion and doubt. Judging from her tone, she knew this folding fan, and it was obviously not an item from the Divine Land. This is the Heavens will fan? You know it. Lin Yi asked Biluo. Since Biluo knew the origin of this folding fan, he naturally had to inquire about it. More importantly, the origin of this folding fan was extraordinary. He had to figure it out. Otherwise, it would cause some trouble. Sometimes, treasures could become a hot potato. An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. Yes, but I won't tell you now. The only thing I can tell you is that this Heavens will fan has a great origin and will be of great help to you. At the same time, it will bring you a lot of trouble. Of course, this trouble is not something you can come into contact with right now. Biluo pondered for a long time before speaking. She did not hide it from Lin Yi, but she did not say it directly either, because there were many things that Lin Yi knew would not benefit Lin Yi. After saying that, she stopped talking. At this time, she had said what she wanted to say. As for the choice, it was up to Lin Yi. Since I've encountered it, it's an opportunity. Even if it's a disaster, what will come will come. Lin Yi closed his eyes and pondered. After a while, he had made a decision. A treasure that was not from the Divine Land had appeared in the Divine Land, and he had encountered it. This was definitely not a coincidence. It was just like his previous life. He had not come to the Divine Land and obtained a heaven-defying treasure. Moreover, he had become someone else's disciple. Now that he had encountered the heavens will fan, this might be destined. There were some things that couldn't be avoided. Besides, Biluo had already said that this heavens will fan would be of great help to him. The trouble was in the future. He would take it one step at a time, and the future could wait. As he spoke, he walked step by step towards the folding fan. He released his divine thought and began to communicate with the folding fan. Rumble, rumble, Lin Ye's divine thought had just come into contact with the folding fan. Suddenly, Lin Ye's sea of consciousness was turned upside down as if it was about to be destroyed. Only the soul suppression cauldron was guarding his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, the moment he came into contact with the folding fan, he would have been killed by the unparalleled divine thought. Even so, Lin Ye's face was distorted and in pain. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Bleeding from all 7 orifices, he looked very miserable. The only thing he could do was to operate the 3,000 heavenly Tao and guard his spirit to prevent his will from collapsing. Blood kept flowing out. Time passed by little. Every day felt like a year to Lin Ye. Every minute and every second was torture. Living was worse than death. Boom, boom, thunder rumbled in the boundless sea of illusions. Electric arcs covered the entire sea of illusions with power that could destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, Lin Ye's body was also drowned by electric arcs and thunder. Rumble, rumble, Shengling Heavenly Sect, Tianyao Peak. The originally clear sky instantly became covered with dark clouds at this moment. The sky was dark and the earth was dark, as if the end of the world had arrived. Thunder and electric arcs covered Tianyao Peak. All the experts were shocked by this scene. They looked at the void with horror in their eyes. However, there was nothing but thunder and electric arcs in the void. Shock and horror, confusion and puzzlement. It filled the hearts of all the experts present. Soon, someone saw the top of the crystal stone pillar. On the crystal stone pillar, Lin Ye's name was shining with a magical light. At this moment, he had reached the top of the 33 islands. Lin Ye, the 33rd island, passed. The simple news made all the experts excited and shocked. At this moment, they all understood. The shocking scene outside was caused by Lin Ye reaching the end of the Sea of Illusions. The end of the Sea of Illusions. This was a place that no one in the Shengling Heavenly Sect had ever reached. A heaven-defying genius was born at the end of the Sea of Illusions. He may not be as good as eldest senior brother for now, but he won't be any worse than him in the future. I wonder what's on the 33 islands. You'll know when you reach the end of the Sea of Illusions. This time, he has completely shocked the Shengling Heavenly Sect. I didn't expect Tianyao Peak to have such a heaven-defying genius. 17 years old, 3rd level of the creation realm, stronger than a true disciple. It's his first time reaching the end of the Sea of Illusions. There were tens of thousands of experts near the altar at this moment. The scene outside and the news on the crystal stone pillar had completely stirred them up. For a moment, there was endless discussion and excitement. Some people even compared Lin Ye to eldest senior brother. Of course, they didn't think highly of him. However, when it came to the future, Lin Ye was definitely not worse than eldest senior brother. This was because Lin Ye was heaven-defying in all aspects. His results in the Sea of Illusions were unmatched. Chapter 171. Lin Ye did not know how long he had endured the excruciating pain. Finally, the pain was no longer there. The folding fan had completely fused with his divine sense. The folding fan that was originally 100 meters tall was now only a foot long. It was the same size as an ordinary folding fan. There was no magical aura on it, so it was impossible to tell that it was a divine sense treasure. Lin Ye was lying on the ground, gasping for breath. His face was pale and powerless. It was as if he had died once. However, he found that his divine sense had reached level 50. Level 50 divine sense. That was an existence comparable to a celestial realm powerhouse. He was shocked and excited. It took him a long time to calm down. He knew that his divine sense was able to break through because of the heavens will fan, and he vaguely guessed that if he did not have level 50 divine sense, he would not be able to withstand the fusion of the heavens will fan. Bang! He took a deep breath and slowly tried to stand up. He reached out, and the folding fan floating in front of him came into his hand. Heavens will fan divine sense treasure. It could unleash twice the power of his divine sense. For example, he was now level 50 divine sense. When he used the heavens will fan, he could unleash the power of level 51 or even level 52 divine sense. However, the attack and defense of the heavens will fan were not invisible. For example, the Sky Heart Pierce and the Soul Voice fan could not be used. More importantly, the heavens will fan had 5 attributes and 4 abilities: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, rain, thunder, lightning. These were the power on the surface. The real power of the heavens will fan had to be explored slowly. How do you feel? At this moment, Viluo's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. There was concern and curiosity in her voice. The concern was for Lin Yi. The curiosity was for the heavens will fan. She knew the origin of the heavens will fan. This heaven-defying treasure was far from being as simple as it seemed. Even in that vast world, this heavens will fan was an existence akin to a supreme treasure. The harvest is not small. You can leave now. He left. The Sea of Illusion, 33 islands. He had reached the end, and he had obtained a divine sense treasure like the heavens will fan. Of course, obtaining the heavens will fan also meant that it would bring him trouble in the future. But that was a matter for the future. You made a big fuss this time. Don't be treated as a lab rat when you go out. Bai Luo's words carried a hint of a joke. But what she said was true. It would be strange if the Shengling heavenly sect wasn't shocked by the fact that he had passed through 33 islands in the Sea of Illusions in one go. Once he left, there would be no peace. Of course, it was impossible for him to be a lab rat. This is good too, based on my performance this time. His status was definitely not lower than any of the true disciples. Whoosh, 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 his figure flickered as he quickly flew toward the first island. At this moment, the Sea of Illusion had lost the Tiani fan, but the soul attack had not weakened. After all, the Sea of Illusion had been formed for countless years, causing it to become a magical place. Even if he left the heavens will fan, the Sea of Illusion could also last for hundreds or thousands of years. In less than a moment, Lin Yi finally left the Sea of Illusion and appeared outside the teleportation array on the altar. The moment he came out, the square burst into an uproar. Senior Brother Lin. Senior Brother Lin. Countless cheers rang out. The sound of discussion was incessant. The scene in the square was like the arrival of an idol. Lin Yi looked over and couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't expect that he would cause such a big commotion in the Sea of Illusion. Almost all the experts in the Tianyao Peak knew about it. Countless experts had also come here. But it was normal. After all, 99% of the experts in the Shengling Heavenly Sect had failed to pass the first island on their first try. But he had reached the top of the Sea of Illusion on his first try. This had never happened since the Sea of Illusion appeared. Even the eldest senior brother, who was called the first monstrous genius in the past 1,000 years by the Shengling Heavenly Sect, was a far cry from Lin Yi. They were not on the same level at all. Lin Yi was a little speechless. No matter where it was, he could reach the end. The Heaven's Altar, the Ninth Mountain, the Capital Sky Peak, the Sword Pavilion, and the Sea of Illusion were all the same. Puff, he took a deep breath. He put his hands behind his back and held the folding fan in his hand. He walked out of the square. At the same time, he nodded to the experts present as a greeting. When he passed by Blood Moon True's son, he also nodded and smiled. Finally, he left the altar and disappeared from the sight of countless experts. After Lin Yi left the altar, he didn't return to the Lingjun courtyard. Instead, he walked towards the land of Saint Spirit. What he needed the most now was cultivation strength. He had reached the top of the Sea of Illusion and reached the end. Now that he had obtained the land of Saint Spirit, he had more time to cultivate. There were only 3 days left for this month. He couldn't waste this opportunity. Greetings, Senior. Lin Yi greeted the old man who was standing guard. You're here. These 3 days are on you. The higher-ups will tell you how much time you have each month. the old man guarding the place said. As he spoke, he held out his withered hand. Thank you, Senior. Lin Yi knew what the guarding elder wanted. Without hesitation, he moved his divine thought. He took out his identity crystal and handed it to the elder. The elder slid Lin Ye's identity crystal on the crystal stone and then returned it to Lin Yi, indicating that Lin Yi could enter the land of Saint Spirit. Lin Yi nodded respectfully and entered the teleportation array. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in the land of Saint Spirit. 3 days. Great. Lin Yi walked on the steps of the land of Saint Spirit towards the stone tablet step by step. In less than a moment, he had already reached the 300th step. This was the place where he appeared last time. With the experience from last time, he came here directly. Last time it took him 6 hours. It allowed his strength to increase by a lot. If he had enough time, he was confident that he could raise his saber intent, fist intent, and even sword intent to 100%. However, 6 hours was too short. It would pass very quickly. Now that he had 3 days of time, he had to cultivate well here. More importantly, he wanted to break his limit and strive to get closer to the stone tablet. 301st step, 302nd step, 567th step. After a full 8 hours, Lin Yi finally reached the 567th step. This was already very close to his limit. However, he left the countless experts who came here to cultivate far behind. There were only a total of 10 people above the 500th step. Lin Yi was one of them. As for the 600th step, there was no one. The closer he got to the stone tablet, the greater the pressure. Every step he took was a terrifying, crushing force. The slightest carelessness would cause him to be injured, not to mention sitting down to cultivate. Chapter 172. 567 steps. That's terrifying. He wasted 8 hours. I wonder how much time he has left to cultivate. He's not a true disciple, so he doesn't have much time left. It must be because of the time he spent in the sea of illusion. However, it seems like he doesn't have much time left. What a pity. I have to say that he's talented and powerful. He's just a young man, yet he's so monstrous. He doesn't look like he's going to stop. He's going to go higher. He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if he goes higher, he won't have time to cultivate. It's not worth wasting a few hours. In the land of Saint Spirit, there were experts from the 10 peaks. At the end of the month, there were thousands of experts and geniuses cultivating here. Seeing that Lin Yi had reached the 300th step when Lin Yi appeared, countless experts were shocked and curious. The 300th step wasn't something an ordinary person could reach, and Lin Yi's starting point was the 300th step. In other words, Lin Yi had reached the 300th step the last time. Then, Lin Yi quickly walked to higher places, which shocked countless experts. While cultivating, they separated a trace of consciousness to observe Lin Yi's movements. When Lin Yi reached the 400th and 500th steps, the experts who were cultivating here were truly shocked. The 500th step, in the entire land of Saint Spirit, there were only 10 people who had reached the 500th step. However, Lin Yi continued to move forward without stopping to cultivate and comprehend. He wasted 8 hours. This situation made many experts disdainful of Lin Yi's actions. Time doesn't matter, Lin Yi muttered to himself. As he spoke, he walked towards the stone tablet. With every step, he was closer to the stone tablet, and the pressure was greater. Of course, the rewards were greater as well. 10 hours, 600th step. 6 hours, 650th step. 7 hours, 700th step. 18th hour, 730 steps. 9 hours, 750th step. After 20 hours, Lin Yi stood on the 777th step. At this moment, he was still 222 steps away from the stone monument. However, this was already his limit. If he wanted to move forward, he would have to kneel. Moreover, his cultivation level was about to break through, so he could only break through here. The experts cultivating in the land of the Saint Spirit came in batches and left, repeating the same thing over and over again. However, many experts who had been watching for a long time were shocked when they saw Lin Yi approaching the stone tablet step by step. No one had ever reached the 600th step. On the other hand, Lin Yi had surpassed 600 steps and reached 700 steps. Now it was nearing the 800th step. It's finally stopped. It's too scary. Who is this? He shouldn't be among the true disciples, right? I don't know. He doesn't seem to be a true disciple. But how can he be so heaven-defying? Moreover, he has already used 20 hours. It's impossible for ordinary people to use 20 hours. Could he be a hidden, peerless genius from a sect? Seeing that Lin Yi had finally stopped, the experts in the land of the Saint Spirit finally heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, they felt that it was hilarious. Lin Yi, a young man, was on the 777th step. On the other hand, they were between the 100th and 300th steps. This difference was more than the difference between heaven and earth. This was not a parallel world at all. There was no comparison at all. Comparing oneself to others would only make one angry. Breakthrough. Lin Yi sat down cross-legged and began cultivating. The peak of the third level of the creation realm was already at the critical point. Right now, the only feasible thing was to break through and suppress his cultivation level. For him, there was no need at all. On the contrary, what he needed now was his cultivation level and strength. 2 hours passed. He successfully broke through to the fourth level of the creation realm. He stood up. The starry sky, divine art, divine dragon, 9 transformations, and 3,000 heavenly Daos were activated. Step by step, he walked towards the stone tablet. After 20 hours in the land of the Saint Spirit, Lin Yi reached the 800th step. After 24 hours in the land of the Saint Spirit, Lin Yi reached the 840th step. After 24 hours in the land of the Saint Spirit, Lin Yi reached the 870th step. After 24 hours in the land of the Saint Spirit, Lin Yi reached the 900th step. He had once again reached his limit here. It was extremely difficult to take another step forward. It was harder than ascending to the heavens. Although there were still 99 steps to reach the 999th step, Lin Yi was completely enveloped by the huge stone tablet. Its unparalleled power crushed him, and his entire body seemed like it could shatter at any time. Facing the stone tablet was like facing an ancient god. To Lin Yi, taking a breather was a luxury. Destruction and recovery were always together, and opportunities and dangers accompanied each other. The pressure was great as he approached the stone tablet. However, his gains were also terrifying. It was 100 times more powerful than the 500th step. Sword intent, saber intent, fist intent. At this moment, it was increasing crazily. His cultivation had also reached the peak of the 4th tier of the creation realm, and he was only 1 step away from the 5th tier. The breakthrough was not far away, but Lin Yi did not want to break through now. He wanted to break through the realm first. Counting the time, there was still more than a day, almost 2 days. After reaching the void refinement realm, the realm was especially important. In other words, the realm was the key to a real expert. Because when it reached a certain level, the experts were no longer limited to martial arts techniques and weapons, but the power of heaven and earth that could destroy heaven and earth, as well as the mysterious realm. The realm was divided into 10 parts. It was said that above the realm was the magical and unparalleled domain. However, the cultivation of the realm was completely based on comprehension and comprehension. Every 10% increase was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Increasing from 10% to 20% was thousands of times more difficult than breaking through from the void refinement realm to the creation realm. Some experts had a high cultivation realm, but a low realm. Some experts had a high cultivation realm and strength, but a low realm. Only in a battle would the advantage and heaven-defying realm of the realm be reflected. With the same cultivation and strength, a slight difference in the realm would often change the outcome. Sword intent, 90%. At the 24th hour, Lin Yi's sword intent finally sublimated. Fist intent, 90%. At the 28th hour, his fist intent reached the 9th level. Saber intent, 90%. At the 34th hour, his saber intent reached the 9th level. At this moment, there were only 4 hours left before the 3-day deadline. Lin Yi did not delay the breakthrough of the realm at all. He hurriedly broke through the cultivation realm and strived to reach the 5th tier of the creation realm in the remaining 4 hours. Just as Lin Yi began to break through, something unexpected happened. A destructive pressure erupted from the stone tablet and crushed toward Lin Yi. In front of this pressure, Lin Yi was like an ant facing a giant dragon. He had no power to resist. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and weak, and he looked extremely ugly. Chapter 173. The stone steel's destructive aura directly suppressed Lin Yi. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lin Yi was dumbfounded. The pressure within the 900th step was indeed great, but he hadn't expected to encounter such a terrifying suppression at the beginning of his breakthrough. It made him tremble with fear, and his expression turned ugly. It was such a good opportunity to cultivate, but his breakthrough was suppressed. He couldn't understand. There's a restriction in front of the divine steel. Otherwise, you'll vanish. Just as Lin Yi was puzzled, a voice rang out in his mind. The voice was like the heavenly words. Hearing this voice, Lin Yi couldn't help but look at the stone steel. The tall stone steel towered into the clouds, emitting boundless pressure. At the same time, he understood. This tall stone steel was the divine steel. There was a restriction in front of the divine steel, or else one would be obliterated. He didn't know the situation just now, so he let him go. Perhaps no one in the divine spirit heaven sect knew this secret. Naturally, if they knew about this secret, the people of the Holy Spirit heavenly sect would warn others about it. That was indeed the case. No one had come within the first 600 steps of the divine spirit land. Not to mention the 900th step. The 900th step, only Lin Yi had reached it. Suppression, restriction breakthrough. What does this mean? Lin Yi muttered to himself as he sized up the divine Saint Spirit steel. Although he was still 99 steps away from the divine Saint Spirit steel, he was completely enveloped by the enormous divine Saint Spirit steel. He was like an ant under a huge tree. Although he wasn't close to the trunk, he was still enveloped by the leaves. He couldn't figure it out. He could only temporarily give up on the idea of breaking through. He tried to use his divine sense to slowly approach, but he didn't dare to act rashly. After all, this was the divine steel. If the divine steel obliterated him, he wouldn't even be able to react. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that the divine steel didn't obstruct his divine sense at all, and he easily approached it. His divine sense passed through the divine steel and entered the interior of the divine steel. Only then did he realize the interior of the divine steel was an independent world. And in this independent world, there were 5 saint steels, and each saint steel emitted a different aura. The saint monument occupied 1/5 of the independent world. Holy Spirit of metal, Sacred Spirit of wood, Sacred Spirit of water, Sacred Spirit of fire, Holy Spirit of earth. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were the 5 saint spirits, and each saint spirit was a saint steel. Here it is. To comprehend the will of the Holy Spirit, to comprehend the power of the Holy Spirit, evolving into the Saint Spirit domain. At that moment, Lin Yi's spiritual will was shaken by the world within the Saint Spirit divine steel. He'd never imagined that the Saint Spirit divine steel in the Saint Spirit land would be so mystical. There were actually 5 saint steels inside. Every saint steel was a manifestation of a domain. It was no wonder that the land of Holy Spirit could allow one to quickly comprehend and raise their intent realms. It turned out that there was a heaven-defying Saint Spirit celestial steel here. There were 5 saint steels in the Saint Spirit celestial steel, which could directly interact with concepts and domains. Naturally, one's cultivation would progress by leaps and bounds. However, the people of the Saintly Spirit Heavenly Sect didn't know what the Saintly Spirit Heavenly Steel was. Neither did he know about the mysteries and wonders of the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. Shu Lin Yi's spiritual will withdrew from the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. He took a deep breath. The expression on his face gradually returned to normal. Although he couldn't break through to the 5th level of the creation realm here, discovering the mysteries here was a million times better than breaking through. Breaking through could be done outside. However, it was impossible to know the secrets of the Saint Spirit heavenly steel from outside. 5 elements, Saint Spirits. 5 elements, concepts, and domains. It's a pity that there's no sword domain. Linyi muttered to himself. What he regretted was that there was no sword domain in the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. If there was a sword domain, his cultivation of the sword Tao would be faster and stronger, and he wouldn't have to take many detours. The inside of the Saint Spirit heavenly steel is indeed mystical. However, your chaotic divine tree is a million times more mystical than the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. The Saint Spirit heavenly steel contains the intent of the 5 elements. Once the chaotic divine tree matures, it can comprehend any concept or domain in the world. Even the laws of the heavens wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, you can't take the Saint Spirit heavenly steel away, so it's not yours. Biluo's voice rang out in his sea of consciousness. She reminded Lin Yi not to feel regret over the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. The Saint Spirit heavenly steel was indeed mystical. However, it was only limited to concepts and domains. Moreover, the Saint Spirit heavenly steel wasn't Lin Yi's, so he couldn't take it away. If he nurtured the chaotic divine tree, it would be a million times more powerful than the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. The two would be on completely different levels. I can't take it away. I can cultivate here and comprehend concepts. Although the concepts are different, they're roughly the same. I should be able to comprehend concepts and domains from the 5 Saint Spirit heavenly steels and slowly comprehend my sword intent, fist intent, and blade intent. Saint Spirit heavenly sect. I've already taken away the heavenly fan. I can't destroy the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. Linyi muttered to himself for a while, then finally thought it through. His heart suddenly brightened. Worrying about personal gains and losses was always detrimental to his state of mind. Thinking of the heavenly fan, he couldn't help but feel guilty. Even now, the Saint Spirit heavenly sect didn't know about it. If he destroyed the Saint Spirit heavenly steel, or took it away, he'd really let down the Saint Spirit heavenly sect. That's right. You can enter the Saint Spirit heavenly steel to cultivate. Although the Saint Spirit heavenly steel isn't yours, as long as you're in the Saint Spirit heavenly sect, the Saint Spirit heavenly steel will be like your private property. You can cultivate however you want. The prerequisite is that you have to have enough time. Right, I just discovered some mystical runes on the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. Those runes should be related to martial skills or cultivation methods. There's not enough time right now. I'll help you record them down the next time I come here. Biluo said. Her words shocked Lin Yi. He hadn't carefully examined the Saint Spirit heavenly steel at first, so he hadn't discovered the runes on it. He hadn't expected the Saint Spirit heavenly steel to be so complicated. All right, there's still 4 hours left. I can't waste this time. Although I can't break through, I can cultivate my intent here and consolidate my 9th-stage sword intent. I hope I won't be too disappointed the next time I come here. With that, Lin Yi began to cultivate. He obviously couldn't cultivate the Starry Sky Divine Art. He'd reached the threshold of the peak 4th stage of the creation realm. Cultivating was useless. He couldn't break through here, so he could only cultivate his intent. At the same time, he was filled with anticipation. He didn't know how much time the Saint Spirit heavenly sect would give him to cultivate. If he only had 20 hours per month, or the treatment of the 10 great true disciples, it definitely wouldn't be enough. Chapter 174. For hours had passed. Lin Yi left the land of Saint Spirit. He returned to the square. What happened? Seeing that there were thousands of experts in the square, more than when he came out of the sea of illusion, he was curious and puzzled. He didn't know what had happened to make so many experts from Celestial Light Peak gather here. Generally speaking, most of the experts from Celestial Light Peak were cultivating or going out to train. He rarely loitered around here when he had nothing to do. But now, there were so many experts gathered here. Little guy, someone wants to challenge you. Just as Lin Yi was feeling curious and puzzled, The voice of the guardian powerhouse rang out and reached his ears. "Challenge me." Hearing the guard's words, Lin Yi could not help but be startled. What a joke. He didn't know many people and didn't offend anyone. Why would he be challenged? And looking at the current situation, there was a big commotion, which proved that the expert who challenged him had a big background. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many experts watching and waiting here. Senior brother Lin is out. He came out of the land of Saint Spirit. He's the one who passed the 33 islands. He doesn't look like it. Senior brother Ling Ao wants to challenge him. Senior brother Ling Ao is one of the top 10 creation realm experts of Celestial Light Peak. He's very powerful and is not much weaker than a true disciple. Why would he challenge an ordinary teenager? What do you know? Don't look at him as a teenager. He's very powerful. He reached the top of the Sea of Illusion on his first try. It's said that he has a grudge with senior brother Ling Ao. Senior brother Ling Ao wants to teach him a lesson. On the square, countless experts saw Lin Yi's appearance and started a discussion. Countless gazes turned to look at Lin Yi. After seeing Lin Yi, most people felt disbelief and disappointment. They didn't expect that senior brother Ling Ao, one of the top 10 creation realm experts of Celestial Light Peak, would challenge an ordinary teenager. This was disappointing. They thought it would be a big battle. But now, it seemed like senior brother Ling Ao was teaching an ignorant teenager a lesson. Ling Ao, the one you challenged was him? Ha ha ha. Ling Ao, you are indeed powerful. I admire you for this. So the person our senior brother Ling Ao wants to challenge is a youngster. Don't speak nonsense. Although that Lin Yi is very ordinary and very young, his strength seems to be pretty good. Furthermore, he has passed through 33 islands and is known as the most demon-level genius in the history of the Shengling heavenly sect. What kind of genius is he? Being able to pass through the Sea of Illusion doesn't mean that he's that powerful. Even if he is a genius, the difference between him and the current Ling Ao is not small. In the center of the square, there were more than 10 young experts gathered together. These people were either the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak, or they were direct disciples of Tianyao Peak, each of whom had a high status and terrifying strength. When they found out about Lin Yi, they either mocked senior brother Ling Ao, ridiculing senior brother Ling Ao for bullying an ordinary genius and lowering their status. In their eyes, Lin Yi was nothing. Even if Lin Yi's performance in the Sea of Illusion was heaven-defying, his true strength was still a far cry from Ling Ao's. The key reason was that Lin Yi had not been promoted to a direct disciple by the Shengling heavenly sect. If Lin Yi was really a demon-level genius, the Shengling heavenly sect had no reason to not promote Lin Yi. Naturally, they did not know that Lin Yi had been cultivating in the land of Saint Spirit for the past 3 days. Boring. The discussions of the experts in the square, naturally, did not escape Lin Yi's ears. With his level 50 divine will, he was comparable to a heaven realm expert. Within 300 miles, he could monitor everything that happened without using his eyes. Hearing the countless discussions, a disdainful smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. Then, he walked out of the square. He had no intention of accepting Ling Ao's challenge. In his opinion, Ling Ao was nothing. Fighting with Ling Ao was a complete waste of time and energy. Stop! Just as Lin Yi was about to leave, a voice rang out and reached Lin Yi's ears. Not only was the voice not polite, it even sounded like an insulting command. Ling Ao, one of the top 10 creation realm experts in the Tianyao Peak, was at the 9th level of the creation realm. His strength was extremely terrifying. In the entire Tianyao Peak, no one dared to provoke him. Even if he bullied others, no one dared to resist. A peerlessly beautiful and bewitching goddess entered his line of sight, causing his soul to leave his body. Fortunately, this woman had no background and was a newcomer. Seeing this, Ling Ao was extremely excited. Then, he asked the people around him to invite the woman. With his status, it was easy for him to get her. Thinking that the beautiful woman was about to become his heart raced. Just as he sent people to invite the woman, his cousin sent a 9th Revolution Saint weapon. He was overjoyed by the arrival of two joyous events. Who would have thought that the people he sent out would be killed by a newcomer? Even Zhou Qingdu was killed. He did not even dare to think about such a thing. He immediately flew into a rage and was determined to turn this newcomer into ashes. When he learned that this newcomer had reached the 33 islands in the Sea of Illusion, he hesitated for a moment. But after a moment's hesitation, he still decided to eliminate this newcomer. Firstly, it was for his reputation. Secondly, it was to prevent future troubles. Thirdly, he felt that it would be easy for him to kill a newcomer at the third level of the creation realm. Then, he announced that he wanted to challenge Lin Yi. He wanted to kill Lin Yi and made him wait here for 3 days. During these 3 days, countless experts in the Tianyao Peak heard the news and rushed to the square, wanting to see a battle between the top 10 creation realm experts of the Tianyao Peak. Are all the people of the Tianyao Peak as rude as you, or is it your personal problem? Lin Yi turned around. He asked. He knew that what would come, and he could not avoid it. Since he could not avoid it, he would face it calmly. A super expert at the 9th level of the creation realm was indeed one of the top 10 creation realm experts of the Tianyao Peak. Such cultivation and strength really ignited his fighting spirit. His tone was calm, without any anger. But his tone was as if he was lecturing someone. This situation was like an elder lecturing a junior. Arrogant. Arrogant. Lin Ye's words were ordinary and calm. But in the ears of all the experts, it was undoubtedly like a sudden clap of thunder. They were so shocked that their mouths were wide open and their eyeballs were about to fly out. Even if a seemingly ordinary young man had great talent, he was still a newcomer. His cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the creation realm. How dare he speak to Ling Ao like this? This was completely provoking and humiliating Ling Ao. Was he not courting death? Or was it because he had reached the Sea of Illusion that he was arrogant? Did he think that he was on the same level as Ling Ao because of his good talent? Chapter 175. All the experts in the square were in shock. Ling Ao was stunned for a moment. Immediately after, the expression on his face became extremely ugly. He was one of the top 10 creation realm experts in Tianyao Peak. Even true disciples had to show him some respect. He could do whatever he wanted in Tianyao Peak because he was powerful and also because of his cousin, true Master Ling Yan. He didn't expect a young man to provoke him. He was already lowering himself to challenge this young man. He didn't expect to be provoked and humiliated by this young man as soon as he met him. Being humiliated in front of tens of thousands of experts in Tianyao Peak almost made him go berserk. Humans need face, trees need bark. He couldn't be any better. I'm giving you face by challenging you. I gave you face, but you didn't take it. Ling Ao walked towards Lin Yi step by step. His eyes were extremely sharp. If eyes could kill, Lin Yi would have died countless times. No, even if his eyes could kill, they could only kill other experts. He couldn't kill Lin Yi because Lin Yi was a level 50 divine spiritual sorcerer. Unless Ling Ao was a level 55 divine spiritual sorcerer, it was possible that Lin Yi could kill with his eyes. Looks like you're ill-mannered. Things have to be sorted out one by one. You have to greet people, not ask them to stop. Remember, if you don't die, don't do this next time. Because next time, people will die. Besides, you're giving me face by challenging me. Do you really think you're someone important? Don't be like this. It's not good because you're not someone important. Lin Yi smiled. He slowly relaxed his hands behind his back. He held a folding fan in his right hand, but didn't open it. He looked indifferently at Ling Ao, who was walking towards him. He was calm and composed. All the experts in the square were stunned. They couldn't help but take a deep breath. They secretly rejoiced that it wasn't them. Otherwise, they would really break down and go berserk. However, they couldn't find any fault with it because what Lin Yi said was the truth. The only problem that could be found was that in this world, only the strong were respected. There was no reason to speak of, and the one with the bigger fist was the absolute truth. However, Lin Ye's cultivation and strength were worlds apart from Ling Ao's. Courting death, Ling Ao almost collapsed. This was because he realized that he really couldn't outtalk this young man named Lin Yi. No matter how he looked at this young man, he didn't like him at all. As he spoke, a terrifying aura spread out. Boom! At the 9th tier of the Fate realm, the pressure was overwhelming, causing the space to distort. Strong winds wreaked havoc, and terrifying wind blades swept up in the square. The wind blades scattered in all directions, and countless powerful martial artists who were watching the show hurriedly retreated. The experts who did not react in time were affected by the wind blades, and a large number of them were injured. The power of the aura alone was enough to injure countless cultivators in the void refinement and creation realm. This was the terror of the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak. In an instant, a huge empty space appeared in the center of the square. There were no longer any powerful martial artists who were watching the show. Only Ling Ao and Lin Yi were in the center of the square, becoming the focus of everyone. Oh, I've lived for 17 years and cultivated for 3 years. I've met many people who spoke to me like this, but I'm still alive and well. Without exception, these people are all trash, and they all died in the end. You, one of the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak, are actually no different from them. The only difference is that you're even more trash. Facing the destructive aura, Lin Yu was still as calm as ever. The smile on his face was faint, as if he didn't care at all. He was like a leaf in a storm that could be drowned and disappear at any time. What? He's only cultivated for 3 years. That's impossible. It's too terrifying to go from the acquired realm to the creation realm in 3 years. Most of them cultivated for more than 10 years or even dozens of years before reaching the creation realm. Many of them even cultivated for 100 years and still didn't reach the creation realm. Is it possible to do it in 3 years? Is he really an unparalleled monster? Lin Ye's words caused a commotion among the experts in the square. 3 years. That's right. It was just 3 years. He had only cultivated for 3 years. Of course, he cultivated martial arts for 3 years, but he cultivated the 3,000 Great Tao for more than 10 years. However, the experts present only knew that he cultivated martial arts for 3 years. It was too unbelievable to reach the creation realm from the acquired realm in 3 years. Not only were the experts present shocked, but even Ling Ao was shocked. However, the more it was so, the more he wanted to eliminate Lin Yi. He had to eliminate him before the higher-ups of Tianyao Peak appeared. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to deal with Lin Yi if the higher-ups appeared. Then, Lin Yi would become a huge threat to him in the future. Die. It wasn't that Ling Ao didn't want to say anything. It was because he knew that anything he said would be countered by Lin Yi. If it were any other time, he would love to teach a disobedient person a lesson in public. However, he had already lost face today. If this continued, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't collapse. A LV9 creation realm expert punched out. Instantly, a hole was smashed in the space. The fist radiance and power crushed the hole and smashed towards Lin Yi. He believed that this punch was enough to make Lin Yi lie down. The tens of thousands of experts present were shocked when they saw Ling Ao's destructive punch. 99% of the people present couldn't withstand the power of this punch. Even other experts of the same level as him didn't dare to withstand it easily. Even the true disciples didn't dare to underestimate it. Everyone knew that Lin Yi would be crippled even if he didn't die from this punch. Ignorant, Lin Yi looked at the destructive fist radiance that was coming towards him. The corners of his mouth curled up as he spoke softly. Then, he raised his hand and punched out as well. The moment he mobilized his true essence, his cultivation realm was revealed. He was at the peak of LV4 creation realm. The power was extremely terrifying, and the power of this punch pierced through the space. Celestial Emperor Fist. It was also the peak of LV3 Celestial Emperor Fist. But at this moment, it was countless times more powerful than the last time he used it. That was because his fist intent had reached the 9th level. The fist intent was awe-inspiring. The radiance was unparalleled. The power of this punch could destroy the space. Boom! The two fist radiances collided, and the space was instantly distorted. It shattered and recovered, and the destructive wind spread out. With the two as the center, everything within 1,000 meters was annihilated. Then, the two of them quickly retreated. Dang, dang, dang. Dang, dang, dang. After this attack, the two of them didn't continue. The countless experts in the square who were watching the show had interesting expressions on their faces. At first, they thought that Ling Ao's punch would cripple Lin Yi or kill him. But they didn't expect the outcome to be beyond their imagination. Lin Yi retreated 10 steps. Ling Ao, on the other hand, retreated 11 steps. Although it was only one step, it meant that Ling Ao had lost to Lin Yi in this attack. Moreover, he had taken the initiative to attack first, but he still lost. He was at LV9 Creation Realm, and was known as one of the top 10 Creation Realm experts in Tianyao Peak. After one punch, he couldn't even compare to a teenager. Chapter 176. 3 days ago, Lin Yu was still at the peak of the 3rd level of the Creation Realm. In just 3 days, he had advanced to the next level. It was indeed terrifying. What was even more terrifying was his strength. He was actually on par with Ling Ao, who was at the 9th level of the Creation Realm. He is indeed powerful. He actually has the upper hand. I didn't expect that a 4th level of the Creation Realm could fight against a 9th level of the Creation Realm. The top 10 Creation Realm experts aren't that great after all. Lin Yi is indeed monstrous. No wonder he is so confident. The two of them have just started. Ling Ao is too careless. Otherwise, with his strength, defeating Lin Yi would be a piece of cake. With Lin Yi's strength, he might be able to enter the top 10 of the Creation Realm. The sounds of discussion continued. However, no one dared to take a step closer. Although the center of the square looked calm, everyone knew that the two of them were like two bombs that could explode with destructive power at any time. Everyone's gaze was firmly fixed on Lin Yi and Ling Ao. One of them was one of the top 10 Creation Realm experts of the Celestial Light Peak. The other was a newcomer to the Holy Spirit sect. The two of them were not on the same level in terms of status, cultivation, age, and talent. The difference was more than 1,000 miles. However, the two of them were now opponents. You have some strength. It's a pity that you are too far away from me. Let me show you the strength of the top 10 Celestial Light Peak experts. The expression on Ling Ao's face kept changing. His killing intent surged rapidly. He grabbed with both hands, and the power of creation was formed. At that moment, his true strength exploded. Compared to the first punch, it was many times more powerful. Crack! With a wave of one hand, a palm grabbed at Lin Yi. The space was directly torn apart by him. Lin Yi's aura was also locked by him. Lin Yi was completely immobile, as if he was imprisoned. Seeing this, Lin Yi was shocked. A 9th level Creation Realm expert was indeed not simple. Seeing that the hand was about to reach him, Lin Yi punched out. At the same time, his body twisted strangely and disappeared. Boom! There was an explosion in the air. In the center of the square, Lin Yi was no longer there, only Ling Ao. However, Ling Ao did not stop. With a flash of his body, he quickly retreated. As a super expert, he naturally felt threatened. Sure enough, just as he retreated, Lin Yi's figure appeared where he was standing. The terrifying power directly pierced through that place. If he didn't retreat, the consequences would be unimaginable. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Immediately, Ling Ao kept retreating and dodging. Lin Yi's figure mysteriously disappeared and reappeared, repeating this process over and over again. For a moment, the two of them displayed their movement techniques to the extreme. On the square, Ling Ao was in a sorry state. Although his strength was terrifying, his movement technique was far inferior to Lin Yi's. Lin Yi's speed could be said to be teleportation. If it wasn't for Ling Ao's terrifying strength, he would have already been bombarded countless times by Lin Yi. The experts who were watching the commotion were shocked to see the scene in the center of the square. What terrifying speed! This is comparable to teleportation. Countless experts were deeply shocked by this scene. With such speed, he was practically invincible among those of the same level. Ling Ao's face became extremely ugly. In front of countless experts, he was actually suppressed by a newcomer. and he could only retreat and dodge. If this continued, even if he could kill Lin Yi, he would lose all his face. Tianxin shield. Thinking of his own situation, Ling Ao was extremely unwilling, and he made up his mind. A shield appeared in his hand, and he took advantage of the moment when he dodged to expand it. Immediately, the palm-sized shield became 1 meter in size. The shield blocked him completely. Boom, as expected, Lin Yi's destructive attack fiercely hit the Tianxin shield. The Tianxin shield trembled for a moment, and Lin Yi's attack was cancelled out. Ling Ao took advantage of this opportunity, and the peerless power of creation of the 9th level of the creation realm ruthlessly crushed towards Lin Yi. This power of creation was extremely terrifying. It could be said to be Ling Ao's strongest attack. That's right, he wanted to use this attack to force Lin Yi to retreat and even kill him. Absolute defense. Lin Yi's face changed. From the moment Ling Ao used the Tianxin shield, he knew what Ling Ao was thinking. However, even though he had thought of it, Ling Ao was really too strong. It was obviously impossible for him to block Ling Ao's attack. Not daring to have the slightest hesitation, he waved his hands and a Tai Chi shield appeared in front of him. In a battle between experts, victory and defeat could be decided with a single thought. All the experts who were watching the fight felt their hearts tremble with fear as they watched the fight between the two. The crucial moment had arrived. No one knew if Lin Yi could block Ling Ao's full force attack. They didn't believe it. They obviously didn't believe it. It would be a joke to think that a Tai Chi shield could block Ling Ao's full force attack. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Everyone's gaze was fixed on this moment. They saw that when Ling Ao's destructive attack landed on the Tai Chi shield, the Tai Chi shield didn't dissipate as expected. Instead, there was only a slight sound. That destructive attack was like a stone thrown into a lake. The attack was blocked. After the Tai Chi shield blocked the destructive attack, it also shattered. Lin Yi's figure was exposed in the air. You have the intention to kill me. Today, no one can save you. Lin Yi stood in the air. He opened his mouth and said indifferently. His tone was incomparably calm. However, his words shocked everyone, because Lin Yi's words were as if he was talking about a very ordinary thing. Did he really have the ability to kill Ling Ao? No one doubted it, because it was obviously impossible. And when Lin Yi's voice fell, he stretched out his hand and lightly pointed. With the point of his finger, a finger force with the aura of death pierced through the air and headed straight for Ling Ao. The finger force caused the entire space to darken. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. That was how terrifying a saint stage martial skill was. The tens of thousands of experts around the square also felt the terror of the finger force, and their hearts couldn't help but tremble. Ling Ao, who was locked on by the finger force, felt as if the god of death had arrived. He had only felt this feeling from his cousin, true Master Ling Yang. He didn't expect to feel it from a newcomer today. It immediately made his heart tremble with fear. Fear aroused his instinctive reaction. As he stretched out his hand, a large battle saber appeared in his hand. The battle saber emitted the aura of a saint artifact. 9th Revolution Saint Artifact, that's right. It was a 9th Revolution Saint Artifact. This 9th Revolution Saint Artifact was given to him by true Master Ling Yang. He had just refined it not long ago, and this was the first time he used it. Wall of the battle saber fiercely slashed out, affecting the destructive finger force. The peerless Saint Artifact's aura, together with a peerless saber intent, turned into a saber light and slashed out. Chapter 177. The saber radiance was peerless and it tore the space apart. The finger force was unparalleled and everything in its path was destroyed. All the experts in the square were horrified. They displayed a strong defense to resist the destructive power of the shockwave. Those with weaker cultivation were sent flying with blood spurting out of their mouths. The battle between the two could be called the pinnacle of Tianyao Peak. In an instant, the saber radiance and the finger force collided. Crack, whoosh, the space was distorted and shattered. The saber radiance burst out. As for the power of the finger, it pressed forward courageously, heading straight for Ling Ao. The experts who were watching the scene almost fell to the ground. Their mouths were wide open, and their eyeballs were about to fly out. The outcome was beyond their expectations. A LV9 Creation Realm expert used a 9th Revolution sacred weapon to attack with full force. But it was no match for a LV4 Creation Realm young man's finger. Not only the experts present, even Ling Ao, who was the main character, had a change in expression. He had never imagined that his strongest attack would be broken by Lin Yi with a single finger. Third slash of the Heaven's End. Ling Ao's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were filled with determination. He waved the 9th Revolution sacred weapon saber in his hand. He suddenly slashed at the finger force that broke through the air. 3 slashes in a row. The 3 saber radiances overlapped. In an instant, the space was split into 2. Chi, the 3 overlapping saber radiances shattered the finger force. The finger force disappeared in the space, causing the space to vibrate nonstop. The peerless saber radiance instantly landed in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi was enveloped by the saber radiance. Ultimate slash. Lin Yi was about to die under the destructive saber radiance. At this moment, Lin Yi's divine consciousness moved. The heavenly flame sacred saber appeared in his hand. He waved the heavenly flame sacred saber in his hand and slashed fiercely. It turned into saber intent and formed a destructive saber radiance that cut through the space. At this moment, the entire square was enveloped by the overwhelming saber radiance. The saber radiance enveloped the square. Countless experts' vision was blocked. They could not see who won or lost, who lived or died. However, a piercing scream rang in the ears of all the experts. The scream was filled with unwillingness and despair. A blood-curdling scream rang out. The blade light disappeared. In the square, Ling Ao was half kneeling on the ground. Lin Yi stood in front of Ling Ao. The heavenly flame sacred blade had already been put away. However, in Lin Yi's hand, there was a faint cold light. At this moment, if he wanted to kill Ling Ao, it all depended on his mood. Tens of thousands of sky-dazzling peak experts watched this scene in shock. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that Ling Ao would lose to a newcomer like Lin Yi. Who was Ling Ao? Ling Ao was one of the top 10 Creation Realm practitioners in Tianyao Peak. Who was Lin Yi? Lin Yi was a newcomer to Tianyao Peak. His cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Creation Realm, and he was only 17 years old. There was a huge gap between the two of them, but the outcome of the battle was beyond everyone's imagination. Ling Ao was actually defeated, and he was defeated very, very miserably. He was defeated to the point where he would never be able to recover. Tianyao Peak, one of the top 10 Creation Realm experts. It sounds like a joke. Lin Yi opened his mouth and said indifferently. At this moment, in the eyes of all the sky-dazzling peak experts, he was no longer an ordinary young man, but a peerless monster. A monster who could easily defeat a 9th-level Creation Realm practitioner at the 4th level of the Creation Realm. How despicable. Ling Ao doesn't represent all the Creation Realm practitioners in Tianyao Peak. How dare he say that the top 10 Creation Realm practitioners are a joke? Does he think that he's invincible in Tianyao Peak just because he defeated Ling Ao? What an arrogant fellow. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Lin Yi's words made a few 9th-level Creation Realm practitioners in the square unhappy. That was because they were equally famous as Ling Ao. They were known as the top 10 Creation Realm practitioners in Tianyao Peak. Now that Ling Ao was defeated by Lin Yi, they were also looked down upon. Naturally, they were extremely unhappy. At that moment, a few of them spoke loudly. They didn't believe that Lin Yi alone would dare to provoke all of them. Moreover, they had just seen the battle between Lin Yi and Ling Ao. They all thought that Ling Ao would lose because his saber intent was not as good as Lin Yi's. If they fought against Lin Yi, they wouldn't have used saber principles. That way, they would be able to win against Lin Yi for sure. Why? You're not convinced? All right, I'll give you a chance. Top 10 Creation Realm practitioners, come at me together. Lin Yi glanced at the 9th-level creation realm practitioners indifferently and said. His tone was calm and emotionless. It was as if he was talking about a very ordinary matter. He was very calm, but all the practitioners in the square were boiling. Was he crazy or stupid for him to make the top 10 creation realm practitioners join forces to fight against him? No matter how strong he was, he couldn't possibly be a match for the top 10 creation realm practitioners. Arrogant, you're courting death. Ignorant, idiot, you must be out of your mind. Hearing Lin Ye's words, the top 10 9th-level creation realm practitioners were instantly enraged. The title of the top 10 creation realm practitioners of Tianyao Peak showed their strength and status. Now that they were being provoked by a young man, how could they not be angry? However, no one stepped forward, because they knew that if they fought against Lin Yi alone, they wouldn't have a high chance of winning. However, they weren't so thick-skinned as to join forces to fight against Lin Yi. If you don't dare, then shut up. Ling Ao, you bullied my maidservant and bullied the weak. You deserve to die. Lin Yi glanced at the top 10 9th-level creation realm practitioners with disdain. Then, he shifted his gaze and looked at Ling Ao. His cold tone almost froze the space. As he spoke, the cold light in his hand became more solid, and his palm slowly pressed down on Ling Ao. All the practitioners were shocked when they saw this scene. Lin Yi, you can't kill me. My cousin is Ling Yang's true son. Sensing the impending death, Ling Ao no longer had any arrogance. He said loudly. He used Ling Yang's name. In Tianyao Peak, and even Shengling Heavenly Sect, Ling Yang's name was enough. No one dared to disrespect him, and no one dared to kill his cousin. Ling Yang's true son? Lin Yi was stunned. He didn't expect Ling Ao to use Ling Yang's name to suppress him at this moment. He was really courting death. When he came to Shengling Heavenly Sect, his target was Ling Tianli. Ling Tianli was the eldest senior brother of Shengling Heavenly Sect. He wasn't even afraid of Ling Tianli, let alone a true disciple, even one of the top 10 true disciples, Ling Yang. To be honest, he didn't take these true disciples seriously. Ling Ao took note of his momentary daze. Yes, Ling Yang's true son is my cousin. If you touch me, I'll make you disappear. Now, kneel down and apologize, and we'll write off the grudge between us. Ling Ao was stunned when he saw Lin Yi. He thought Lin Yi was afraid of Ling Yang. To be honest, everyone in Tianyao Peak was afraid of Ling Yang. Ling Yang was one of the top 10 true disciples of Shengling Heavenly Sect. He was the only one of the top 10 true disciples in Tianyao Peak. In terms of status and strength, he was number 1. Lin Yi was a newcomer, so there was no reason for him not to be afraid of Ling Yang. Ling Ao's arrogance reappeared, and a smug smile appeared on his face. Chapter 178. Not only are you trash, but you're also brainless and ignorant. What is Ling Yang? Can he be eaten? Lin Yi looked at Ling Ao with disdain. He said coldly, if it was someone else, Ling Ao's move would definitely work. However, he was facing Lin Yi. This move was useless in front of Lin Yi. It could even be said that this move sped up his death. As he spoke, his palm pressed down on Ling Ao. The power of the Heavenly Frost Aurora could completely erase Ling Ao from this world. Stop! Just as Lin Ye's palm was about to land on Ling Ao's body, a dignified voice sounded. When the voice sounded, an unparalleled pressure descended from the sky. That pressure was like a king descending to the world. It was high and mighty. All the experts in the square almost knelt down in front of the terrifying pressure. They had no strength to resist. Their faces were pale and their hearts were trembling. Everyone looked at the person in the sky. When they saw the person, everyone was shocked. Ling Ao, who was on the ground in front of Lin Yi, revealed an excited expression. Brother, I'm going to turn this bastard into ashes. Ling Ao yelled loudly. It was as if he had received a huge support. His decadence was swept away, and his arrogance returned to him. Hearing Ling Ao's words, some people in the square who did not recognize the person in the sky knew who he was. For a moment, they could not help but lower their heads not daring to look at the expert in the sky. Ling Yang, Ling Yang, Ling Yang. Countless cheers could be heard at this moment. They did not dare to look at the person, but they were full of respect for him. In a world where the strong were respected, there was a principle that the weak respected and worshipped the strong. Without a doubt, the expert in the sky was the object of worship and respect of countless people in Tianyao Peak. That's right, Ling Yang. It was Ling Yang. He was one of the 10 true disciples of Tianyao Peak, Ling Yang. His existence represented the talent of Tianyao Peak. His existence represented the pinnacle of Tianyao Peak's younger generation. He was at the peak of the 9th level of the creation realm. He had been suppressing his realm all this while, waiting for an opportunity to enter the heaven realm. If that opportunity came, he would definitely be at the top of the top when he reached the heaven realm. He hadn't expected true Sun Ling Yang to appear here. It was obvious that he had come for Ling Ao. All the experts felt pity for Lin Yi. After offending him, there was no place for Lin Yi in the Saint Spirit Heavenly Sect. If he wanted to kill true Sun Ling Yang's cousin, then Lin Yi would die without a doubt. No one could survive against true Sun Ling Yang. It's over, it's over. Lin Yi is finished. Weren't you very arrogant earlier? Haha, this is retribution. You were so arrogant before, but now you're nothing compared to true Sun Ling Yang. I can guarantee that he will kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Even if he begs for mercy, true Sun Ling Yang won't spare him. Everyone kicks a collapsing wall, and the monkeys scatter when the tree falls. At that moment, countless discussions rang out. All of them were pessimistic about Lin Yi. When comparing Lin Yi and true Sun Ling Yang, one was a dragon, while the other was an ant. The two weren't on the same level. If it weren't for Ling Ao, true Sun Ling Yang wouldn't even look at Lin Yi. The experts couldn't be blamed for this. True Sun Ling Yang's fame was too great. Lin Yi's performance was only monstrous. Even so, in their eyes, Lin Yi couldn't be compared to true Sun Ling Yang. You want to save him? Lin Yi looked at true Sun Ling Yang calmly and asked. The palm that carried the heavenly frost aurora was less than an inch away from Ling Ao. As long as he pressed down lightly, Ling Ao would be erased by the heavenly frost aurora and disappear. His tone was incomparably calm. His expression was calm. He didn't feel any pressure when facing true Sun Ling Yang, let alone panic. That's right. He's my younger cousin. No matter how wrong he is, only I can teach him. Seeing that you're a newcomer, I won't bicker with you today. Kneel down and apologize, and you can leave. True Sun Ling Yang couldn't help but be startled by Lin Yi's performance. He had seen many monstrous geniuses, but in front of him, they were all extremely restrained. But this young man wasn't restrained at all. In fact, he was very calm. In front of so many people, he had to pay attention to his identity. He didn't want to be accused of bullying a newcomer. More importantly, he didn't take Lin Yi seriously. In other words, Lin Yi wasn't worthy of him making a move. Brother, when Ling Ao heard true Sun Ling Yang's words, he was a little unhappy. But when he thought of the difference between him and true Sun Ling Yang, he didn't dare to say anything. If it weren't for true Sun Ling Yang, he would have been killed by the other core disciples. Besides, if he missed this opportunity, he would think of many ways to turn Lin Yi into ashes. True Sun Ling Yang is really magnanimous. That's my idol. Lin Yi's luck is really good. If he had met other core disciples, he would have really died. He's too lucky to only kneel down and apologize. True Sun Ling Yang letting him go is really a blessing from his ancestors. When the countless experts in the square heard that true Sun Ling Yang had bypassed Lin Yi, they all felt that Lin Yi was lucky. At the same time, countless experts respected true Sun Ling Yang even more. As for true Sun Ling Yang asking Lin Yi to kneel down and apologize, it was completely ignored. To them, kneeling down and apologizing to true Sun Ling Yang was too normal. Kneel down and apologize? You guys are really a family. Originally, I wanted to bypass him this time, but I don't like you. Huh? The smile on Lin Yi's face was still the same. Looking at the high and mighty true Sun Ling Yang, a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. As he spoke, the palm that was in front of Ling Ao casually pressed down. The terrifying heavenly frost aurora directly turned Ling Ao into nothingness, causing him to disappear from this world. It was a saint-grade martial technique, heavenly frost aurora. Not only was it a martial technique, but it was also an incomparably heaven-defying matter. In an understatement, Ling Ao, one of the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak, had died. He had died in front of true Sun Lingyang. Moreover, Lin Yi had made it very clear that true Sun Lingyang had sped up Ling Ao's death. If it weren't for true Sun Lingyang, he might have really let Ling Ao go this time. But what was the reason? The reason was that Lin Yi didn't like true Sun Lingyang. This was a resounding slap to the face. He directly provoked true Sun Lingyang. Arrogant. Arrogant. Everyone described Lin Yi as arrogant. He had seen arrogant and egotistical people, but he had never seen anyone more arrogant and egotistical than Lin Yi. For a moment, countless experts present were stunned. They looked at Lin Yi in shock. "Aunt, you deserve to die." True Sun Lingyang was furious. As one of the top 10 true disciples, he was almost invincible in the creation realm. In Tianyao Peak, his status was extremely high, but he didn't expect that one day he would be provoked by an ant-like young man. The young man even wanted to kill his cousin in front of him. Moreover, the young man even said that he killed Ling Ao because he didn't like true Sun Lingyang. Chapter 179. True Master Lingyang was furious as he stood in the air. An earth-shattering pressure crushed toward Lin Yi. He was at the peak of the 9th level of the creation realm, and was one of the top 10 true disciples of the Shengling heavenly sect. Just his pressure alone was enough to crush someone of the same level. Moreover, Lin Yi was only a youth at the 4th level of the creation realm. He was confident that he could crush Lin Yi into kneeling on the ground with his pressure. He wouldn't kill Lin Yi so easily. If he let one person die, he would free the others. Now, he wanted Lin Yi to die, but he wouldn't let Lin Yi die so easily. He wanted to grind Lin Yi into ashes. Puffed, puffed. The earth-shattering pressure didn't crush Lin Yi. Instead, it suppressed the experts who were watching the commotion in the square. More than 100 experts vomited blood and fainted from the pressure. Some of the stronger cultivators had ugly expressions on their faces. Even the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak felt the pressure of the pressure and instinctively retreated to the outer edge of the square. When they looked at Lin Yi, without exception, they were all gloating. "Even if you deserve to die, it's not your turn either." Lin Yi looked coldly at true Master Lingyang in the air and said. As he spoke, he didn't retreat, but advanced. He rushed into the air and faced the earth-shattering pressure. This action stunned all the experts in the square. They thought that Lin Yi had gone crazy. However, before they could react, Lin Yi's figure turned into an azure dragon. The azure dragon was 200 meters long and 10 meters thick. Its gray dragon scales exuded an unparalleled dragon power, and its aura was full of dragon aura. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. The dragon's might was unparalleled. It was the 4th transformation of the 9 transformations of the divine dragon, the azure dragon transformation. The azure dragon transformation transformed into an azure dragon. Boom! The earth-shattering pressure collided with the dragon might of the azure dragon. Instantly, the space twisted and tore apart. The explosion of destruction shook the heavens and the earth, causing countless experts' eardrums to hurt. The aftershocks of dragon might and might spread out, sending hundreds and thousands of experts flying. As for true Sun Lingyang, his body swayed and he actually retreated. The azure dragon was huge beyond compare. Unparalleled strength. The dragon's might was unparalleled. In terms of power and pressure, it had the absolute advantage. It was truly invincible among those of the same level. Heavens, he has transformed into an azure dragon. This is a body-tempering technique that he cultivates. What a miraculous and powerful body-refining technique. It can actually transform one's body into an azure dragon. He has already cultivated this cultivation method to a very high level. What a series of surprises. On the square, all the experts were stunned. Looking at the Azure Dragon, his heart couldn't help but tremble. They did not expect Lin Yi to be so powerful that he could transform himself into an Azure Dragon. In this way, Lin Yi's strength had reached a terrifying level. Even if he wasn't a match for True Sun Lingyang, he had closed the distance between him and True Sun Lingyang by a lot. At least, Lin Yi, who had transformed into an Azure Dragon, didn't suffer in front of True Sun Lingyang's pressure. Very good. You're worth my time. Today, you'll transform into a dragon, and I'll pull out the dragon tendons. True Sun Lingyang stabilized his body with an uncertain expression on his face. He, who cherished his reputation, was forced to retreat by Lin Yi in front of countless experts. This was definitely a great humiliation for him. However, this was also good. The stronger Lin Yi was, the more excited he was to kill Lin Yi. Killing a piece of trash and killing a genius. The feeling between the two was worlds apart. Do you really think you're someone important? Lin Yi, who had transformed into an Azure Dragon, said. The huge dragon claw grabbed at True Sun Lingyang. However, such a simple claw was enough to shatter the space. That extremely pure power ignored everything, even the air and space, and directly destroyed it. Heavenly Seal Hand. The expression on True Sun Lingyang's face was indescribable. However, at this moment, everyone knew that True Sun Lingyang was furious. Seeing Lin Yi's claw coming over, True Sun Lingyang also met the dragon claw with one hand. Only an expert like True Sun Lingyang would dare to meet the dragon claw with his palm. In an instant, the dragon claw and the palm imprinted together. Instantly, a destructive force spread out in all directions. Everywhere it passed, it turned into nothingness. The dragon claw burst into a bloody scene. The huge dragon claw was directly smashed into pieces by the palm. The Azure Dragon was also sent flying, and the space was smashed into pieces by the huge body of the Azure Dragon. On the other side, although True Sun Lingyang wasn't injured, his body swayed and retreated dozens of meters. His internal organs were in turmoil, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He was extremely shocked. He didn't expect Lin Yi's incarnation to be so terrifying. If it weren't for his talent and realm, he wouldn't have been able to do anything to the Azure Dragon. True Sun Lingyang is too strong. Even if Lin Yi transformed into the Azure Dragon, he still isn't a match for True Sun Lingyang. The gap between the two of them is too big. This was originally an unbalanced battle. If Lin Yi reaches the peak of the 9th level of the creation realm, he might be qualified to challenge True Sun Lingyang. What's Lin Yi? In front of True Sun Lingyang, he's just a clown. He transformed into the Azure Dragon and crippled one of his claws. I wonder if his original arm will be crippled. If his arm is crippled, his life will be over. The powerful Azure Dragon's claws were actually crippled by True Sun Lingyang's palm. Even his claws were crippled. Who told you to be arrogant? Haha. In the square, countless experts who were watching the show were extremely shocked when they saw the exchange of blows between Lin Yi and True Sun Lingyang. For a moment, the entire square was in an uproar. Most of the experts present were pessimistic about Lin Yi. A few experts who were known as the top 10 creation realm experts of Tianyao Peak were gloating. That was normal. In terms of age, cultivation realm, strength, and status, Lin Yi and True Sun Lingyang were worlds apart. In the eyes of all the experts, it was normal for Lin Yi to be seriously injured. Lin Yi's serious injury was normal. It would be abnormal if Lin Yi was unscathed from this blow. You're just SOSO. In the sky, Lin Yi's voice sounded again. His voice was like a roaming dragon that resounded through the entire square. All the experts who were watching the show heard it clearly. When they heard Lin Yi's words, they couldn't help but be shocked. Then, they looked curiously at Lin Yi, who was in the sky. They wanted to see how thick-skinned he was to say such words. One of his claws was crippled, but he was still so arrogant. When everyone looked at the sky, they were all shocked and stunned. It was as if they had seen a ghost. They saw that the dragon claw that had been shattered by True Sun Lingyang's palm was now completely intact. It didn't seem to be injured at all. This situation made all the experts feel as if they were hallucinating. It wasn't just the experts who were watching the show who were shocked. Even True Sun Lingyong couldn't help but frown. He had personally crippled the Azure Dragon's claw, but it was as good as new. This heaven-defying, self-healing speed made him feel a little scared. Chapter 180. Song Long tore through the air with unparalleled power. The dragon claw grabbed at True Sun Lingyong. True Sun Lingyong was stunned and did not dare to be careless anymore. Previously, he had never taken Lin Yi seriously. However, the previous attack had shown him how powerful Lin Yi was after transforming into Song Long. What made him even more fearful was Lin Yi's self-healing ability. The heavenly seal hand slammed at the dragon claw again. Boom! The dragon claw clashed with the heavenly seal hand again. The space was shattered, and a strong gale spread out. This time, Song Long was knocked back 100 meters, and his dragon claw was bleeding. It was a tragic sight. True Sun Lingyong's body swayed, and he also retreated with a serious expression on his face. All the experts in the square who were watching the show couldn't help but be shocked when they saw this scene. This was because Lin Yi was still heavily injured this time and was at a disadvantage. However, he was much better than last time. On the contrary, True Sun Lingyong retreated further than last time. Boom! 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 After Song Long was knocked back, his bloody dragon claw instantly recovered. However, Song Long did not stop. Instead, he attacked True Sun Lingyong at an even faster speed. True Sun Lingyong's mind was in turmoil from the Azure Dragon's shock. Before he could recover, the Azure Dragon's destructive attack came again. For a time, Song Long was constantly knocked back. As time went by, as True Sun Lingyong and Song Long collided, True Sun Lingyong was knocked back further than Song Long. However, Song Long's dragon claw was no longer injured. Gradually, Song Long was on par with True Sun Lingyong. Boom! Boom! Uft! A man and a dragon fought in the air. The destructive power left the square empty. All the onlookers had already retreated from the square and watched the battle in the air from afar. At the edge of the square, 3 elders of the celestial light peak appeared. The faces of the 3 elders were also filled with shock. This battle had shocked the entire celestial light peak. After some time, Song Long sent True Sun Lingyong flying with his claw. True Sun Lingyong spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. His blood formed a blood curtain in the air. The tens of thousands of onlookers on the square were stunned. Shock. Other than shock, there was still more shock. All the experts revealed looks of disbelief. True Sun Lingyong, the #1 genius of Tianyao Peak, one of the 10 true disciples of the Shengling heavenly sect, who was at the peak of the 9th level of the creation realm, had been beaten to the point of spitting out blood. It was the first time they had seen true disciple Lingyong so severely injured. Furthermore, the person who had severely injured true Master Lingyong was only a newbie at the 4th level of the creation realm. For a time, other than being shocked, all the experts were shocked by Lin Yi's perseverance and strength. This was because Lin Yi's Azure Dragon form had been heavily injured countless times by true Master Lingyong. However, he didn't retreat in the slightest. Instead, he treated true Master Lingyong as a whetstone. Sky Moon Sword. True Sun Lingyong retreated a kilometer away. Before Lin Yi arrived, he had already adjusted himself. With a thought, a formidable sword appeared in his hand. The sword exuded the terrifying might of a sacred artifact. Holding the Sky Moon Sword, True Sun Lingyong's aura suddenly changed. At this moment, he was like a sword god. The unparalleled sword will merged with him. Rumble, rumble, at this moment, the sky above the Tianyao peak darkened. Strong winds raged, and the space shook as if the end of the world had arrived. The sword in True Sun Lingyong's hand condensed the power of heaven and earth. The sword will condensed and turned into streaks of sword light. Streaks of sword radiance quickly fused together to form a huge sword radiance. The massive sword light stirred the void. This is True Sun Lingyong's most powerful attack. It said that apart from the other 9 true disciples, no other true disciple can withstand this move. You're wrong. Among the 10 true disciples, only eldest senior brother, second senior brother, and third senior brother can withstand this move. The others don't dare to face it head-on. I heard that true son Ling Yang once killed a celestial realm expert with this move. Lin Yi is powerful enough to force true son Ling Yang to use his most powerful move. No matter how powerful he is, he won't be able to withstand this move. After this move, Lin Yi will no longer exist in the Tianyao Peak. Countless Tianyao Peak experts who were watching the show were shocked when they saw true son Ling Yang use this move. Many experts had seen this move of true son Ling Yang before. This was because true son Ling Yang had once fought with other true disciples. He had always relied on this move to stay in an invincible position. Now that he was using it to deal with Lin Yi would not be able to escape. Old Qian, save him in a moment. Li Shi, one of the 3 elders at the side of the square, said. He knew how powerful true son Ling Yang was. It was impossible for Lin Yi to resist. If he didn't intervene, Lin Yi would definitely die. It would be a loss for the Tianyao Peak if a prodigy like Lin Yi died. We can't intervene. As soon as Li Shi finished speaking, one of the other 2 elders objected. His name was Xue Qingji, and he was an elder of the Tianyao Peak. He also had another identity, which was true son Ling Yang's master. True son Ling Yang was his pride, but now he was provoked by Lin Yi. If true son Ling Yang didn't eliminate Lin Yi today, he would have an inner demon and become a laughingstock in the Tianyao Peak and the Shengling heavenly sect. Naturally, he wouldn't let Qian Shunfeng save Lin Yi. Seeing that Xue Qingji wouldn't let anyone save Lin Yi, Li Shi immediately snorted. He naturally knew what Xue Qingji was thinking. However, he couldn't offend Xue Qingji for a genius. Moreover, he had to offend a heaven-defying monster like true son Ling Yang. Now, whether Lin Yi lived or died would depend on his own ability. Then, he stopped arguing with Xue Qingji and looked at the 2 people in the sky. You overestimate yourself. While countless powerhouses were criticizing him, Lin Yi opened his mouth and said these 4 words. He looked at true son Ling Yang with disdain. His hands were behind his back. He didn't look like he was going to fight at all. This scene stunned all the experts in the square. They didn't know what Lin Yi was doing. Facing true son Ling Yang's strongest move, he was indifferent and even said that true son Ling Yang was overestimating himself. Not only were the experts present shocked, but they also regarded Lin Yi as a madman or a fool. The one who was overestimating himself wasn't true son Ling Yang, but Lin Yi. So what if your talent is good? You're just like an idiot. Xue Qingji revealed a smile. At this moment, he seemed to have seen through Lin Yi. Although Lin Yi was talented, there was something wrong with his brain. Such a prodigy didn't deserve to compete with true son Ling Yang. Hearing Lin Yi's words, Li Shi couldn't help but be stunned. He revealed a bitter smile. What a pity. True son Xue looked at Lin Yi, who was in the sky. Looking at Lin Yi now, he thought that Lin Yi was an arrogant person who overestimated himself. Such a prodigy wouldn't live for long and had no future to speak of. Such good talent, but it was wasted by his own brain. Whoosh in the void, the sky moon sword in true Master Ling Yang's hand was condensed with a sword intent that could destroy the heavens and the earth. The sword brought along an unparalleled sword light as it slashed toward Lin Yi, instantly slicing the space in half. Lin Yi was completely locked on by the sword light. Chapter 181. The sky moon sword in true Sun Ling Yang's hand slashed through space. Lin Yi, who was locked in place, was like a weak ant in front of the unparalleled sword gleam. What awaited him was destruction in the next second. He would vanish in a thin air, completely vanishing from this world. This was the result of provoking true Sun Ling Yang. When true Sun Ling Yang saw that his destructive sword was about to kill Lin Yi, a trace of a smile flashed in his eyes. A proud expression appeared on his face again, and he had a superior attitude. But before he could finish rejoicing, his expression changed drastically. All the experts who were watching the show were shocked. They were originally sure that Lin Yi would vanish in the next second. That was because when Lin Yi was about to be destroyed by the sword gleam, a palm-sized round mirror suddenly appeared in Lin Yi's hand. The round mirror was simple and unadorned. Holding the round mirror, Lin Yi shone it at True Sun Lingyang. Suddenly, something strange happened. True Sun Lingyang's destructive sword gleam landed on the round mirror in Lin Yi's hand. Not only was the round mirror not destroyed, but it also reflected True Sun Lingyang's destructive sword gleam back. The unparalleled sword gleam was about to kill Lin Yi a second ago, but in the next second, it reflected back on True Sun Lingyang. True Sun Lingyang was extremely unwilling to accept this. He knew how terrifying his sword gleam was and that he couldn't resist it at all. From the beginning to the end, he had never thought that he would die under his own attack, let alone in front of his best move. The destructive sword gleam drowned True Sun Lingyang. True Sun Lingyang vanished into thin air. He couldn't be more dead. As for Lin Yi, he was unscathed. He stood in the air and looked indifferently at the place where True Sun Lingyang had been destroyed. But in his heart, he was extremely shocked. He hadn't expected the soul mirror to be so terrifying that it could really reflect any attack. Of course, the premise was that the opponent's realm had to be the same as his. In other words, if Lin Yi was in the creation realm, the opponent had to be in the creation realm as well. If the opponent exceeded the creation realm, the soul mirror wouldn't be able to reflect the opponent's attack. How magical! Lin Yi muttered to himself in his heart. At the same time, he was also shocked by the consumption of the soul mirror. Using the soul mirror just now had nearly drained his divine sense. Recovering his divine sense after exhausting it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. It would take at least half a month. Whoosh! True Sun Lingyang had died. However, that saint artifact was completely undamaged. Lin Yi made a grabbing motion, and the Sky Moon sword landed in his hand. He just so happened to be lacking a powerful saint artifact. With such a powerful saint artifact, his strength would skyrocket. Of course, if he could use the divine sword, he wouldn't have to worry about divine weapons. The main reason was that the divine sword was not something he could use right now. Only after cultivating the third sword would he be able to use the divine sword. But now, he didn't even remember what the divine sword looked like. He didn't even know where the divine sword was in his body. How did you do it? True Sun Lingyang has died. What is that artifact in Lin Yi's hand? How can it reflect the opponent's attack? This is too horrifying. Who would dare to fight with him in the future? Isn't that the same as courting death? Not necessarily. Although that artifact is powerful, there must be some limitations. Or one would have to pay a heavy price when using it. True Sun Lingyang died just like that. He might be the one who died the most aggrieved. I can't believe that he was killed by himself. So, Lin Yi was confident. No wonder he was so confident. No wonder he was so arrogant. No wonder he was so arrogant. I knew it. How could a genius have a problem with his brain? In a quiet square, that brief silence was broken. Suddenly, the square was in an uproar. Discussions could be heard everywhere. Shocking. Truly shocking. No one had expected that the battle between Lin Yi and True Sun Lingyang would end like this. No one had expected it. Perhaps, other than Lin Yi, no one could have known the outcome. Senior Brother Lin. Senior Brother Lin. Senior Brother Lin. After the discussions, countless people called out Senior Brother Lin's name. Gradually, the entire square was filled with the words, Senior Brother Lin. Countless experts cheered for Lin Yi. To be able to kill one of the top 10 true sons, he must be one of the top 10 true sons. Even if Lin Yi had killed True Sun Lingyang with the artifact, so what? This was a world where the strong were respected. Moreover, True Sun Lingyang was the one who took out the sacred artifact first. True Sun Lingyang had used the Great Sage artifact. Only then did Lin Yi use his artifact. Moreover, being able to possess such a heaven-defying artifact was an ability in itself. Monster. The expression on Li Shi's face kept changing. Then, there was an inexplicable excitement in his heart. Firstly, it was because Xue Qingji had stopped Qian Shunfeng from saving Lin Yi. Secondly, it was because Lin Yi could kill true Sun Lingyang. Although Tianyao Peak had lost true Sun Lingyang, they had gained an even more amazing monster. Killing one of the top 10 true suns is a capital offense. Xue Qingji woke up from his shock and disbelief. His expression was extremely ugly. Not only was this a disgrace, but he would also lose a huge backer in the future. Originally, he had trained true Sun Lingyang for the future. However, Lin Yi had killed true Sun Lingyang, dashing his hopes. How could he not be angry? At this moment, it was as if Lin Yi had dug up his ancestral grave. Killing Lin Yi was what he wanted to do the most. Even if he had lost a backer, he had to at least kill the person who had wiped out his hope. Thinking of this, his loud and angry voice resounded through the square. It reached the ears of all the onlookers. For a moment, everyone looked at Xue Qingji with confusion and disdain, as well as disdain and anger. Judging from the reactions of those onlookers, Xue Qingji was not a good person. I want to know something about Theta Scarabii. Does the Shengling Heavenly Sex test for elders have no IQ requirements? Lin Yi stood in the air after hearing Xue Qingji's words. He turned his head to look at Xue Qingji. His divine telekinesis was extremely powerful. Even if he was fully focused on the battle, his divine telekinesis could cover everything within a radius of 150 miles. Nothing could escape his divine telekinesis. He naturally knew about Xue Qingji, Li Shi, and Qian Shunfeng. He also heard what they said. He knew that Xue Qingji was not friendly to him. As for why, he did not know. However, that was not important. No matter what the reason was, as long as they were a threat to him, he would kill them. Sizzle, Lin Ye's words caused the onlookers to sigh. Shock. Shock. They did not expect that Lin Yi would dare to talk back to an elder of the Shengling Heavenly Sect. Although Xue Qingji was at the bottom of the Shengling Heavenly Sect's elders, he was still a celestial realm cultivator. He dared to say that Xue Qingji had an IQ problem. That kind of courage was not something an ordinary person could have. At the same time, countless onlookers began to worry about Lin Yi. A celestial realm cultivator was indeed a celestial realm cultivator. Chapter 182. You have committed 2 sins. Killing the top 10 true disciples is one of them. Offending your superiors and insulting your elders is the second. Xue Qingji was furious. As an elder of the Shengling Heavenly Sect, he was noble and superior to his disciples. He didn't expect that this young man named Lin Yi not only killed his hope, but also scolded him for being stupid. It was intolerable. He couldn't get rid of the hatred in his heart unless he killed Lin Yi. However, in the face of tens of thousands of experts from the Tianyao Peak, he had to consider his identity. Otherwise, he would have gone to kill Lin Yi the second after Lin Yi killed true Sun Lingyang. I have committed 2 sins? Who convicted me? Now let's straighten things out. Your IQ is really worrying. Are the top 10 true disciples who were killed counted as true disciples? You're not smart enough to talk nonsense. Is that offending your superiors? Lin Yi looked at Xue Qingji indifferently. He said unhurriedly, was a true disciple who was killed still qualified to be called a true disciple? Besides, true Sun Lingyang was already dead. No matter how talented he was just a dead man now. As an elder, he didn't deserve to be an elder if he called a deer a horse and inverted black and white. So what if he was humiliated? If he was annoyed, it didn't matter if he fought with him. His voice was ordinary, but it was loud and clear, neither servile nor overbearing. He simply explained the reason. In his words, he emphasized the rule of the world where the strong were respected. He even scolded Xue Qingji again. Bastard, I'll crush you to death. Xue Qingji went berserk this time. As the saying went, even a clay figurine had some rustic temper. As an elder, he had to cherish his reputation and didn't want to damage it. However, what Lin Yi said was really infuriating. It would be strange if he didn't go berserk after being scolded over and over again. At this moment, he finally understood the pain that true Sun Lingyang felt when facing Lin Yi. As he spoke, his figure flashed strangely and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in the air, less than 100 meters away from Lin Yi. The celestial being realm's unparalleled coercion was like the might of heaven, and it directly pressed down on Lin Yi. The coercion of the celestial being realm was not as simple as that of the creation realm. Cultivators in the creation realm were directly suppressed by those in the celestial realm because of the pressure. Pucci. The pressure came crushing down from all directions. Lin Yi unleashed his most powerful aura to welcome the attack. However, in the face of the might of the celestial realm, he could not withstand a single blow. His mind trembled, and his entire body felt as if it was being crushed by 100,000 mountains. He felt as if he was about to die, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. More importantly, his body seemed to have been shackled, and he could not move at all. At this moment, he understood. The difference between the blessed realm and the celestial realm was too great. Fortunately, it was only him. If it were any other blessed realm cultivator, it was not impossible for them to die under Xue Qingji's pressure. Die! Xue Qingji locked on a Lin Yi and reached out a hand. He reached out to grab Lin Yi, who was 100 meters away. He wanted to crush Lin Yi to death. He wanted to really crush Lin Yi to death. That was the only way to vent the hatred in his heart. Xue Qingji, you've gone too far. Li Shi originally thought that Xue Qingji would only teach Lin Yi a lesson because of his status and the Shengling heavenly sex anger. Now, it seemed that he had thought too much. Xue Qingji really wanted to kill Lin Yi. True son Ling Yang had already died in front of him. If Lin Yi died as well, he would definitely be punished by the Shengling heavenly sect. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the Tianyao Peak would suddenly lose two geniuses. With a roar, he flashed and tried to stop Xue Qingji. However, as soon as he moved, Qian Shunfeng stepped forward and stood in front of Li Shi. It was obvious that Qian Shunfeng was on Xue Qingji's side. With Qian Shunfeng holding him back, it would be a piece of cake for Xue Qingji to crush Lin Yi. You want to kill me? The only way is to sleep. Even if you sleep and dream, it's still a nightmare. Lin Yi was trapped in the air and couldn't even move his fingers. Seeing Xue Qingji's hand coming at him, Lin Yi felt the threat of destruction. This was the first time he felt such a threat since he came to this world. It showed how powerful Xue Qingji was. However, he didn't panic or fear at all. As he spoke, he activated his divine telekinesis. The heavenly heart spike shot out silently and went straight for Xue Qingji's soul. Xue Qingji didn't expect Lin Yi to be not only a martial arts genius, but also a terrifying divine telekinesis master. His divine telekinesis was so powerful that it was beyond his imagination. One careless move and his soul was destroyed. A blood-curdling scream resounded throughout the world. The hand that reached for Lin Yi stopped in the air and couldn't go any further. He looked like he was in agony. He was bleeding from all 7 orifices and looked miserable. Die. The moment Lin Yi used his divine telekinesis, he had already prepared the martial arts technique that he was going to use. Although he was trapped, he was mentally prepared because he knew that Xue Qingji couldn't block his heavenly heart spike. As expected, when Xue Qingji's soul was attacked, the pressure that Xue Qingji put on him naturally disappeared. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Yi yelled. The Skyfire's sacred blade appeared in his hand, and he slashed out. The blade was shot up into the sky, and the entire sky was filled with blade radiance. The ultimate slash. He slashed at Xue Qingji, who was in pain. It was a heaven-defying flip. This was a flip. A second ago, Xue Qingji was suppressing Lin Yi with the pressure of a celestial being. Lin Yi couldn't even move his fingers and became a lamb to be slaughtered. But in the next second, Xue Qingji showed a strange reaction and became a lamb to be slaughtered by Lin Yi. 30 years in the river, 30 years in the river. It didn't even take 3 seconds. It didn't even take 30 years. All the experts in the square were stunned by this unimaginable scene. Crack! The ultimate blade cut through the space and landed in front of Xue Qingji in an instant. Xue Qingji only reacted then, but his soul was shattered and he didn't even have any consciousness. Even if he reacted, it was useless. He could only watch as he was killed. Qingji was about to disappear. Just then, a five-colored light appeared in the void. The moment the five-colored light appeared, the blade radiance in the sky froze, and the ultimate blade was also trapped 1 meter away from Qingji. A small punishment. How about sparing his life? A calm voice sounded in the void. Although the voice was calm, it gave off a feeling that it couldn't be disobeyed. It made it impossible for anyone to resist. Who are you? Lin Yu was shocked. This time he was truly shocked. The expert that he had never seen before was so powerful that it was beyond his imagination. Such means weren't just about strength. Chapter 183. The Sky Shining Peak. The voice in the sky sounded again. For simple words, but it explained his identity. The Celestial Dazzle Peak was the peak of Celestial Dazzle Peak. It could also be said that the person with the highest status in Celestial Dazzle Peak was the Peak Master of a peak. Peak Master. Peak Master. Peak Master. Hearing the words Sky Shining Summit, all the powerhouses in the square half knelt and bowed to the void. The Peak Master of the Sky Shining Peak was a truly terrifying expert. Not only did he have a high status, but he was also extremely powerful. He was definitely one of the most powerful figures in the entire Shengling heavenly sect. More importantly, when the Peak Master of each peak reached a certain cultivation level and age, they would retire, and a new Peak Master would be appointed to manage the peak. Although they had retired, they would still have the status and authority of a Peak Master. The voice in the sky was indeed a Peak Master, but they weren't sure which Peak Master was. This one, or the previous one, or the previous one. All the experts in the square were shocked. They didn't expect the Peak Master to step in. The battle should be over now. With the Peak Lord's intervention, no matter how arrogant Lin Yu was, he should know his limits and not be so arrogant anymore. I understand, but he wants to kill me. So, he can't be left alive. Something that none of the experts had expected happened. Lin Yu said to the sky. He still wanted to kill Qingji, even if the Peak Master stepped in. Not to mention whether Lin Yi could kill Qingji under such circumstances. Lin Yi's courage and boldness in refuting the Peak Master was admirable. If it were someone else, they wouldn't have objected at all. Qingji, you bullied the weak. An elder of the Shengling heavenly sect. Die. In the sky. After a few moments of silence, the voice sounded again. The words in the voice shocked all the experts in the square. It was completely beyond their imagination. They didn't expect it and didn't dare to think about it. They didn't expect the Peak Master to agree with Lin Yi and accuse Qingji of a crime. In that case, even if Qingji died, he deserved it, because he was convicted by the Peak Master. The moment he said that, the five-colored light flashed strangely. Qingji was hit by the five-colored light and turned into a bloody screen. He couldn't be more dead. Not even Qingji's corpse was left behind. He had completely disappeared from this world. Shock, all the experts were shocked, and their eyeballs were about to pop out. An elder in the celestial being realm did not even have the slightest reaction and resistance, and just disappeared like that. No one dared to imagine how powerful the Peak Master was. At this moment, other than being shocked, all the experts were also filled with admiration for Lin Yi. Not only was he arrogant, but he was also incomparably powerful. His courage was even more admirable, as he was the only one who dared to stand his ground and refute the Peak Leader. Even the Peak Master had personally erased Qingji. Everyone present was an idiot. He also knew that the Peak Lord valued Lin Yi. Thank you, Peak Master. What Lin Yi did not expect was that the Peak Lord did not stop him. Instead, he helped him get rid of Qingji. Getting rid of Qingji was not what surprised him the most. He was surprised that the Peak Lord could tell that Qingji had been killed by his heavenly heart stab. So the Peak Lord erased Qingji because he did not want others to know the real cause of Qingji's death. In other words, he was helping Lin Yi hide his identity as a divine spiritual sorcerer. Another reason was that Qingji had been killed by the Peak Lord, not by Lin Yi. From today onwards, you will take over Ling Yang's position in the Tianyao Peak. As for the top 10 true disciples, You have to ask the other true disciples of the Shengling Heaven sect if they will agree. It would be best if you don't embarrass the Tianyao Peak. The Peak Lord's voice sounded in the air. After that, he disappeared completely and did not intend to speak again. There was a brief silence in the square. After a brief silence, the crowd was in an uproar. True Linyi, True Linyi, True Linyi. Countless experts cheered the name True Linyi. This was a world where the strong were respected. Lin Yi was powerful and monstrous, so he deserved to be respected. He had killed True Sun Lingyang and wanted to kill Elder Xue Qingji, and he had gotten what he wanted. More importantly, the Peak Lord had allowed him to kill Xue Qingji personally. The Peak Lord had personally given him the treatment of being one of the top 10 true disciples. Even though the Peak Lord had said that he would ask the other true disciples if they agreed, Lin Yi would be one of the top 10 true disciples as long as the other true disciples did not object. Everyone knew that even True Sun Lingyang was no match for Lin Yi. How could the other true disciples have the guts to oppose Lin Yi? If they opposed Lin Yi, they would defeat Lin Yi. Disperse. Lin Yi glanced at the experts in the square and nodded in response. Then he opened his mouth and said. His figure flashed strangely and disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already left the square. He won't hold a grudge, right? If he holds a grudge, we're finished. Even True Sun Lingyang was no match for him, and he even wanted to kill Elder Xue Qingji. If he holds a grudge against us, we'll be dead too. What a cheap mouth. Why do we offend him? Now I understand that even if we join forces, we're no match for him. If we're in the same realm, we'll all die. If the Peak Lord hadn't blocked that attack, Elder Xue Qingji would have died in his hands. On the square, the original top 10 Creation Realm experts were filled with regret. Ever since Lin Yi killed True Sun Lingyang, they had regretted it. However, when they saw Xue Qingji intervene, they heaved a sigh of relief. They did not expect that Elder Xue Qingji would eventually disappear while Lin Yi was still alive and well. I misjudged him. I really didn't expect this. True Sun Xue Yu muttered to himself as he looked in the direction where Lin Yi disappeared. A sly smile appeared on his beautiful face. His rosy lips pouted, and his figure flashed strangely and left the square. In the square, the sound of discussion was incessant. Lin Yi's monstrous deeds were dug out one by one. A newcomer who dared to fight senior brother Ling Ao and killed a true son. He reached the end of the ocean of illusion on his first try. Senior brother Ling Ao was killed, true son Lingyang was also killed, and Sky Realm Elder Xue Qingji was also killed because of him. All of this was because of him. He was a newcomer. Lin Yi's appearance made people understand a principle. One cannot judge a book by its cover. Lin Yi was ordinary, but he was monstrous. Chapter 184. After Lin Yi left the square, he went straight back to Ling Zhun Courtyard. He was cultivating in seclusion. Yes, he was cultivating in seclusion. He was now at the peak of the 4th level of the creation realm. He wanted to break through in the land of Saint Spirit, but it was not suitable. Of course, he could break through further away from the divine steel, but Lin Yi did not want to do that. He already had a plan. In the future, he would spend all his time cultivating in the land of Saint Spirit. When he broke through, he would leave the land of Saint Spirit. Cultivation strength. I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. Lin Yi sat cross-legged and said to himself. He did not have any fighting spirit when he fought with Ling Ao, but when he faced Ling Yang, his fighting spirit was aroused. This showed that Ling Yang's strength was terrifying, but Ling Yang still could not bring him any pressure. Xue Qingji was different. When he faced Xue Qingji, he felt an unprecedented threat of death. In front of Xue Qingji, he was like an ant facing a dragon. If he was not a divine spiritual sorcerer, he would have been a dead man. The strength of the celestial realm was beyond imagination. Even a very ordinary celestial realm being could easily crush him. He didn't like this feeling very much, so improving his strength was his only choice. When he came to the Holy Spirit Heaven sect, his opponents were already in the celestial realm. Not to mention the celestial being realm, He had to work hard to catch up with those in the creation realm in the Shengling heavenly sect. Otherwise, he would be left far behind. Ling Tianli was the last person he had to defeat in the creation realm. Ling Tianli was the senior brother of the Holy Spirit Heaven sect. His strength had reached the celestial realm. When he reached the celestial realm, ordinary celestial realm warriors would not be able to reach him. Breakthrough. After some time, Lin Yi calmed down and began to use the Starry Sky Divine spell to break through. His realm had already reached the peak of the 4th level. He did not need to cultivate at all. He could break through directly. Half a day later, he broke through the 4th level of the creation realm. His realm had reached the 5th level of the creation realm. His strength was 1 level stronger than when he was at the 4th level. If he met Ling Yang again, although it would not be easy to kill him, it would be much easier than before. Of course, he didn't change his attitude towards Xue Qingji. After all, Xue Qingji was in the celestial realm. The difference between them was not a small realm, but a big one. The gap between the realms was like a natural chasm. After breaking through, Lin Yi entered the 9-fold space to cultivate, stabilizing his realm, cultivating martial skills, and refining the Sky Moon Sword. The Sky Moon Sword was a saint weapon that surpassed the 9th revolution, 100 inscriptions saint weapon. 100 inscriptions saint weapon was more than 100 times stronger than a 9 revolutions saint weapon. Only a saint weapon with more than 100 inscriptions could be called a 100 inscriptions saint weapon. Every additional rune on a saint artifact would increase its power slightly. Every rune was incomparably difficult to carve. More importantly, it was easy to fail in inscribing runes, and failure would result in failure. For example, your saint weapon already had 99 runes. If you wanted to forge it into a 100 inscriptions saint weapon, you would have to carve more runes. If you succeeded, it would become a 100 inscriptions saint weapon. If you failed, the saint weapon with 99 runes would become trash, similar to a spiritual weapon. What he lacked now was a suitable longsword. He didn't expect that true Sun Lingyang would send him the Sky Moon Sword. It was really a rare thing to have someone send him a pillow when he was sleepy, while Lin Yi was cultivating in seclusion. The Shengling heavenly sect also welcomed a happy occasion. The happy occasion was that the first senior brother of the Shengling heavenly sect had broken through to the celestial realm. After suppressing the peak of the 9th level of the creation realm for several years, he finally broke through. He became a powerful celestial realm expert. Although he was just a beginner in the celestial realm, his monstrous talent made his strength extremely terrifying. Ordinary celestial realm experts were no match for him at all. Once, when he was in the creation realm, he had killed a celestial realm expert. After reaching the celestial realm, his strength could be imagined. On the 3rd day after Ling Tianli reached the celestial realm, the second senior brother Zhao Yulin also broke through to the celestial realm. Unexpectedly, the 3rd senior sister Chu Yunyan also reached the celestial realm on the 6th day. In just 6 days, the top 3 of the young generation of the Shengling heavenly sect had all broken through to the celestial realm. It was definitely a joyous occasion for the Shengling heavenly sect, because a grand occasion for the entire Cloudy Sky Kingdom was about to arrive. Half a year later, the Cloudy Sky Kingdom would hold a royal banquet. However, there were limited places to attend this banquet. It could even be said that these places were extremely precious. 1 place for a 6th grade sect, 3 places for a 5th grade sect, 10 places for a 4th grade sect. The conditions for the places were that they had to be the top monstrous talents of the major sects, and they had to be under 50 years old. As for the realm, there was no limit. It was said that the royal banquet was just a kind of selection of places. In the Shengling heavenly sect, there are not many celestial realm experts under 50 years old. Ling Tianli, Zhao Yulin, and Chu Yunyan had all reached the celestial realm. The 3 of them were almost the representatives of the celestial realm among the young generation of the Shengling heavenly sect. With the 3 of them representing the Shengling heavenly sect in the royal banquet, the Shengling heavenly sect would have a better chance. Of course, in order to compete fairly for the places, as long as the conditions allowed, they could compete. The places could not be decided internally. This was the rule of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, and also the rule of the entire Heavenly Purification Territory. Although not many people dare to compete with Ling Tianli and the others, such a competition would definitely be a grand event. Every monstrous talents battle was a wonderful opportunity that was hard to come by. It was definitely a gain to be able to see the means and strength of the monstrous talents. The first senior brother broke through to the celestial realm for the royal banquet. Of course, the second senior brother and the third senior sister are the same. I think the first senior brother has the best chance. Not necessarily. In the previous batch of first senior brother, there were also a few incredible senior brothers and senior sisters. They were not much weaker than first senior brother, and their cultivation levels were higher than first senior brothers. They also have a good chance. This time, there should be 16 people in the Shengling Heavenly Sect competing for 3 places. Although the others have met the conditions, they are self-aware and do not dare to take the risk. It is said that the top 3 will get a 100-pattern Saint weapon or a heaven-level martial technique from a sect. Inside the Shengling Heavenly Sect, everywhere, people were talking about the royal banquet. It could be said that these days, everyone was talking about the royal banquet. Many powerful cultivators had also come out. For a time, the Shengling Heavenly Sect was countless times more lively than usual. Super monstrous talents and goddesses who could not be seen in normal times could occasionally be seen these days. Time passed day by day. Half a month. The competition for the places of the Shengling Heavenly Sect began. The venue was the Shengling Square. Chapter 185. Almost all the powerhouses on Celestial Light Peak had gone to the Sacred Spirit Plaza. The entire Celestial Light Peak was empty. In front of Lingjun Courtyard, solitary spirits stood gracefully. At this moment, her beauty was unparalleled. She combined charm and holiness into one body, displaying both to a perfect degree. The peerless beauty of a generation, Goddess Dechen. That was her. However, on her beautiful face, there was a trace of worry. After a while, a crack appeared on Lingjun Courtyard's defensive light barrier. Lin Yi walked out of Lingjun Courtyard and looked at Silent Soul in confusion. He did not know why Silent Soul was looking for him. He was comprehending the second style of the 12 styles of Sky Sword when he received Silent Soul's voice transmission. Logically speaking, Silent Soul should still be cultivating at this time. I broke through. Not bad. Looking at Silent Soul, he noticed that Silent Soul's cultivation had broken through from the 9th level of the Void Refinement stage to the Creation stage. Yes, Silent Soul nodded. However, she did not know how to say it. Is something the matter? Lin Yi asked when he saw Silent Soul's expression. Silent Soul would not disturb his cultivation if there was nothing. However, the current situation meant that it was not a small matter. Young Master, the competition for the royal feast has begun. There's news of Xing, as well. She should be at the Sacred Spirit Plaza now. Silent Soul said. In fact, she had already come out of seclusion 5 days ago. After coming out of seclusion, she noticed that Lin Yi was still cultivating, so she went to Celestial Light Peak to inquire about what had happened. Naturally, she knew that Lin Yi had killed Ling Ao and Ling Yang. More importantly, she knew about the royal feast. Royal feast? Tell me about it. Lin Yi was stunned. What he cared about was not the royal feast, but Luo Xing-er's safety. He wanted to increase his strength and strengthen himself so that he could rescue Luo Xing-er. If he wanted to save Luo Xing-er, he had to face Ling Tianli, the eldest senior brother of the Shingshuan sect. As he spoke, he had already walked out of Tianyao Peak and prepared to head to the Sacred Spirit Square. The Royal Banquet is a grand event for the Cloud Heavenly Kingdom to select monstrous experts. In the Cloud Sky Kingdom, a rank 6 force has 1 spot, a rank 5 force has 3 spots, and a rank 4 force has 10 spots. All of these spots must be competed for. Those with a quota can participate in the Royal Banquet. Only the top 3 monstrous geniuses will be able to enter a mystical place. For this slot, the monstrous geniuses of the Cloud Sky Kingdom will fight to the death. Silent Soul followed behind Lin Yi. He said as he walked. Although she didn't know much, at least she knew more than what was being spread outside. Lin Yi also heard it. The competition of the Xingshuan sect was just the first round of selection. In other words, the royal banquet of the Cloud Sky Kingdom was just a round of selection. After many rounds of selection, only the most monstrous and powerful experts would have the opportunity to enter that mystical place. Silent Soul didn't know where exactly that place was, let alone Lin Yi. It seems that this is a fierce competition. Is there any other news? Lin Yi pondered for a while and said. A strong expectation rose from the bottom of his heart. If the monstrous geniuses of the entire Cloud Sky Kingdom and even the heavenly purification territory fought to the death for a slot, the benefits would be abundant. Ling Tianli, Zhao Yulin, Chu Yunyan. The three of them have broken through to the celestial realm. When Silent Spirit spoke, his face carried a worried expression. She was most worried about this. After all, Lin Yi had to face Ling Tianli, and Ling Tianli was the eldest senior brother of the Xingshuan sect. It went without saying how terrifying his talent and strength were. Moreover, Ling Tianli had now reached the celestial realm. The gap between Lin Yi and Ling Tianli was even greater. This gap was undoubtedly the difference between heaven and earth. Oh, Lin Yi responded with an oh, and there was no change in his expression. He was still as calm and composed as ever. Soon, the two arrived at the Sacred Spirit Square. Eldest senior brother, third senior sister, second senior brother, third senior sister. Still far from the square, Lin Yi heard the cheers of the experts on the square. Among the cheers, the eldest senior brother, second senior brother, and third senior sister were the most numerous. These three people were the most popular. They were the idols of countless experts in the Xingshuan sect. The Sacred Spirit Square was so crowded that it was difficult to describe the grand occasion. Only the high platform in the center of the square had the fewest people. That was where the experts of the Xingshuan sect fought. It was the symbol of the stage for the experts. Those who dared to walk on that platform were the most monstrous and powerful figures of the Xingshuan sect. Beside the high platform, there were hundreds of seats. These seats were for the elders of the Xingshuan sect and the experts who would participate in the battle. Lin Yi of the Tianyao Peak. He's Lin Yi? Is he really that monstrous? I really can't tell. I didn't expect him to kill True Sun Lingyang. True Sun Lingyang is nothing among the top 10 true disciples. It's not a big deal to kill True Sun Lingyang. Besides, is he really as powerful as the rumors say? Regardless of whether he's powerful or not, he looks quite young. Most of the time, he's ordinary. Huh, Lin Yi is here too. Is he here to participate in the competition? Are you kidding? With his cultivation at the 4th level of the creation realm, he wants to compete with a celestial realm expert. Some of the people who knew Lin Yi were surprised by Lin Yi's appearance. However, most of them had only heard of Lin Yi and had never seen him with their own eyes. They didn't know how powerful Lin Yi was. When they saw Lin Yi's appearance, they looked down on Lin Yi. When they mentioned Lin Yi's participation in the competition, they all laughed. No matter how monstrous Lin Yi was, he was only in the creation realm. Moreover, his cultivation wasn't high. Naturally, it was impossible for him to participate in the competition. It was more like he was here to make his presence known. At most, he was here to watch the show. As for participating in the competition, it could only be said that he was delusional or had a problem with his brain. Moreover, Lin Yi's rise was closely related to the Tianyao Peak. Everyone in the Tianyao Peak knew of Lin Yi's existence. As for the entire Shengling heavenly sect, few people knew about Lin Yi, let alone who Lin Yi was. Moreover, Lin Yi's amazing rise had only been half a month. As for the other 9 peaks, the most people who knew about Lin Yi was the name on the crystal pillar in the illusory land seawater. Lin Yi walked towards the square with a smile. He spread out his divine thought and enveloped the entire square. Soon, he figured out the situation here. What excited him was that he found Luo Xing Er's figure when he scanned with his divine thought. She was right next to senior brother Ling Tianli. However, he could see that Luo Xing was not happy at all. This was not Luo Xing's character. Seeing this, Lin Yi had a trace of killing intent in his heart. However, the culprit, Dongfang Yu, was already dead. Now his only anger could only be vented on Ling Tianli. However, Ling Tianli was already in the celestial realm. The gap between their strength was too big. If Ling Tianli was still in the creation realm, he would have a little confidence. Humph! Lin Yi snorted softly, and the smile on his face grew wider. Then, he took a step forward and walked toward the high platform. Chapter 186. Gongzi. Seeing Lin Yi's actions, Silent Soul exclaimed. The thing she was most afraid of and worried about was going to happen. However, she knew that no one could stop Lin Yi. Even she couldn't stop him. She could only chase after him and pray that things could be resolved peacefully. Wow, so beautiful. That's a goddess. Since when did the Shengling heaven sect have such a goddess? A natural beauty, unparalleled in beauty. Silent Soul's voice was sweet and seductive, just like the sound of nature. She attracted countless gazes. Seeing Solitary Spirit, the hearts of everyone trembled. For a period of time, Solitary Spirit attracted the gazes of countless experts, causing her to become the focus of countless geniuses. Soon, these people realized that Silent Soul was with Lin Yi. A natural beauty with unparalleled beauty was with an ordinary young man. What a joke. On the Sacred Spirit Plaza, countless pairs of eyes looked at Lin Yi and Silent Soul. Soon, the two appeared not far from the high platform. Just a little bit further, and they would reach where the participants were sitting. That was the highest point in the entire Sacred Spirit Plaza. Everyone in the plaza could see it at a glance. That place was one of the most eye-catching places in the entire plaza. Gradually, Lin Yi and Silent Soul's figures appeared in front of everyone. Who is that? Is he going to participate in the competition? Ha! A goddess, a true goddess. That's Lin Yi from the Tianyao Peak. He doesn't know how high the sky is. Overestimating himself. I don't think he's going to participate in the competition. But why is he going there? When all the experts in the Sacred Spirit Square saw Lin Yi walk up to the stage, they immediately broke out into an uproar. There were people who were curious, people who were watching the show, and people who were taking pleasure in his misfortune. Of course, they were all excited to see Silent Soul. There were a total of 100 seats on the high platform. At this moment, more than half of it had already been occupied. The ones sitting there were all monstrous geniuses and elders of the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect who were participating in the competition. Only one person wasn't participating in the competition, nor was he an elder of the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect. She, on the other hand, was just a young girl at the void refining stage. However, she came here with Ling Tianli, so no one dared to object. The young girl was gloomy, without a trace of happiness. She was not interested in anything happening in the outside world. In fact, she was filled with worry. Her lively and beautiful eyes were somewhat lifeless. Inadvertently, he glanced over. Seeing Lin Yi and Silent Soul, her eyes were filled with surprise and disbelief. Her beautiful eyes kept sizing up Lin Yi. Lin Yi had a calm smile on his face as he looked at Luo Xing. His heart ached. After coming to this world, the person he was most familiar with, closest to, and even closest to, was Luo Xing. That lively, cute, innocent, and beautiful girl had become like this. There's going to be a good show. He doesn't know what's good for him. How dare he covet the woman that eldest senior brother likes? Awesome. I really admire him. The experts in the square were shocked to see Lin Yi and Luo Xing's situation. For a moment, the atmosphere in the square became strange. The experts on the high platform also changed their smiles. More than a dozen monstrous geniuses participating in the competition looked at Ling Tianli as if he was a joke. Humph, blind yourself. How powerful was Ling Tianli? He was invincible in the creation realm and had once killed a celestial being. Now that he had reached the celestial being realm, His strength was extremely terrifying. From the moment Lin Yi came up, he noticed it. But for him, an ant had nothing to do with him. His identity and status had already transcended all others. A giant dragon would associate with an ant. The only thing that moved him was that there was a stunningly beautiful woman beside the ant. When he was sizing up Silent Soul, he never thought that the ant would stare at the woman he liked. What was even more unbearable was that the woman he liked kept looking at the ant. Luo Xing'er, who was originally depressed, looked as if she had seen something she liked. "Are you talking to me?" Lin Ye's eyes never left Luo Xing, but he asked faintly. He directly ignored Ling Tianli. His tone seemed to be asking, but it was more like an interrogation. There was a kind of dominance in it. Screech, the square, was in a state of shock. How dare he talk to eldest senior brother like this? He must be tired of living. And how dare he ignore eldest senior brother and stare at eldest senior brother's woman? Was he stupid or crazy? All the experts were in a state of shock. Their eyeballs were about to fly out. 3 seconds. Ling Tianli was stunned by Lin Ye's words, but he reacted instantly. Anger rose in his heart. An ant dared to ignore him and even looked at the woman he liked. This was a great humiliation. His killing intent was awe-inspiring. His killing intent was locked on Lin Yi. He didn't want to talk to Lin Yi at all. The dignified eldest senior brother of the Holy Soul sect disdained to be enemies with ants, but he would not let them provoke him. The consequence of provoking him was to vanish from the world. Ignorant. Lin Yi's gaze finally moved away. He looked at Ling Tianli. The corners of his mouth curled up as he indifferently said 2 words. "If people respect me, I will return the favor tenfold. But if someone dares to offend me, I will pay back double." What about eldest senior brother of the Holy Soul sect? What about celestial being realm? Those who should be killed would still be killed. Those who should die would still die. Boom, this time, the experts in the square were completely in an uproar. An ordinary young man dared to confront eldest senior brother and called him ignorant. Who was the ignorant one? There were more than 100,000 people in the square, all of whom were geniuses or experts. They didn't expect that there would be such an appetizer before the competition began. But this appetizer was too fierce. Eldest senior brother was the number 1 among the young generation of the Holy Soul sect. It was reasonable for second senior brother to challenge eldest senior brother. After all, the gap between them wasn't too big. But an ordinary young man dared to provoke and humiliate eldest senior brother. This kind of behavior was simply courting death. It could even be said that he was trying to disgust eldest senior brother. Go to hell. Ling Tianli was really angry. Today, he felt particularly disgusted. He felt particularly angry. What could be more disgusting and infuriating than to be provoked and humiliated by an ant? His killing intent burst out, and the unparalleled might of the celestial being realm crushed toward Lin Yi. His anger was as horrible as the wrath of the heavens. Suddenly, all the experts on the high platform trembled. The sky above the Holy Soul Square was originally cloudless, but now it was covered with dark clouds. The wind was raging, and the space was trembling. Huff! Lin Yi took a deep breath. The celestial being realm was indeed powerful. This Ling Tianli was even more powerful. He was much more powerful than Xue Qingji. If Xue Qingji was here, he would be killed by Ling Tianli in an instant. The unparalleled might made him feel the threat of death. His entire body, even his fingers, could not move at all. Puff! Chapter 187. An unparalleled pressure ruthlessly crushed Lin Ye's body. Facing Ling Tianli's power, Lin Yi didn't even have a chance to resist. He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated quickly. A stream of pressure. Lin Yi was seriously injured. The power of the celestial being realm was so horrible. On the square, all the experts were very excited when they saw this scene. They admired Ling Tianli even more. As for Lin Yi being injured, it was a normal thing in their eyes. It would be abnormal if Lin Yi was not injured. He really overestimated himself. He didn't even have a chance to resist in front of eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother's pressure is enough to kill him. Talking back to eldest senior brother, he deserves to die. He really thinks he is a big shot. This is a newcomer from Tianyao Peak. It's time to teach him a lesson. He is finished. No one can save him. Nearly 100,000 experts were shocked and excited when they saw Lin Yi being injured by Ling Tianli's pressure. Countless experts began to talk and belittle Lin Yi, overestimating himself. That was overestimating himself. A newcomer with a little talent came to die. He deserved to die. Are you mentally ill? Just when all the experts were in shock. On the high platform, the beautiful girl who was originally beside Ling Tianli scolded Ling Tianli. The girl's face was full of anger and excitement. Ling Tianli didn't expect that Luo Xing would scold him. He couldn't help but be stunned and didn't react for a while. Immediately, he understood what was going on. An icy aura rose from his body, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword as he looked at Luo Xing. She dared to scold him in front of everyone. She must be tired of living. Furthermore, it seemed that Luo Xing was helping that ant. However, he couldn't understand why Luo Xing would help an ant she didn't know. Luo Xing scolded Ling Tianli, which shocked all the experts. They couldn't believe their ears and eyes. Brother-in-law, Luo Xing, ran to the injured Lin Yi in everyone's eyes. Tears flickered in her quick-witted eyes. After leaving the Yinshui kingdom and coming to the Yuntian kingdom, she had been waiting for the day when her sister and brother-in-law appeared in front of her. She relied on this slim hope. She didn't expect that she would have a chance to see Lin Yi in her life. He was her family in addition to her parents and sister. In her eyes, Lin Yi was her family. He was her family member who doted on her. She arrived in front of Lin Yi and threw herself into Lin Yi's arms. What's the matter? Is Lin Yi her brother-in-law? A goddess-like existence is actually lying in his arms like a little bird. Is there something wrong with my eyes? Why is eldest senior brother's woman in Lin Yi's arms? I didn't expect it. Nearly 100,000 experts of the Shengling heavenly sect were completely stunned at this moment. That was a beautiful girl at the goddess level. Even senior brother liked her, but she threw herself into Lin Yi's arms. And Lin Yi had a perfect stunner just now. Now, Lin Yi had a relationship with at least 2 beautiful girls, which instantly attracted countless experts. It was a huge turn of events. Although Ling Tianli injured Lin Yi, but the girl he liked was in Lin Yi's arms. The scene on the platform was definitely the biggest shame in Ling Tianli's life. The girl he liked didn't like him. Instead, she threw herself into the arms of the non-entity he despised. Shame. Shame. Great shame. It's all right. Sorry, brother-in-law is late. Lin Yi ignored the eyes of all the experts. He ignored Ling Tianli's eyes. He gently stroked Luo Xing's back and comforted her. His voice was very gentle, but his heart was filled with killing intent and anger. He wanted to burn Ling Tianli into ashes, at all costs. Brother-in-law, don't worry about me. Xinger is very satisfied to see you. Get out of here. You're no match for Ling Tianli. Luo Xing stopped sobbing. She whispered to Lin Yi. She knew better than anyone how powerful Ling Tianli was. Not to mention the creation realm. Even the celestial being realm was no match for Ling Tianli. In the whole Shengling heavenly sect, only a few peak heads and suzerain could suppress Ling Tianli. In a few years, Ling Tianli would be invincible in the celestial being realm. She didn't want Lin Yi to die in the Shengling heavenly sect because of her. Xinger, don't worry. It's just Ling Tianli. How dare he bully you? Brother-in-law will burn him into ashes. Lin Yi said with a smile on his face. He gently moved away from Luo Xing. Then he slowly looked at Ling Tianli. At this moment, Ling Tianli was almost furious. Just now, Luo Xing and Lin Yi hugged each other. Although they spoke in a low voice, all the super experts present heard it clearly. They didn't take Ling Tianli seriously at all. Ling Tianli, was a monster. His status was so high. Now he was humiliated by non-entity. He couldn't bear it. Today, you will think that death is a beautiful thing. Ling Tianli's cold voice sounded like it came from hell. There was no word to describe his anger at this time. In his view, what happened just now was no different from being cuckolded. No one could bear it, not to mention that he was the eldest senior brother of the Shengling heavenly sect, the first monster and the superior in the celestial being realm. He wanted to torture the man and the woman in front of him with the cruelest means. Ling Tianli, don't expect to live today. Since you dare to hurt my people, you have to be mentally prepared to pay the price. In a world where the strong are respected, the fist is powerful. But today, I still have to tell the truth, lest people think that I bullied you and let you die with regrets. After Luo Xing and Silent Soul stepped back, Lin Yi said loudly. His voice was like rolling thunder, spreading to the ears of all the experts on the square. In order to kill Ling Tianli, 3 conditions must be met. First, the strength to kill Ling Tianli. Second, the reason to kill Ling Tianli. Third, the consequences to bear after killing Ling Tianli. After all, Ling Tianli's identity was not simple. The Shengling heavenly sect might not allow him to kill Ling Tianli, so he had to tell the truth. In this way, he wouldn't be in the wrong and wouldn't be stopped. Say it. This is your last wish before you die. Ling Tianli was stunned, but he didn't do it immediately, because he didn't want to leave a topic for others to gossip about. Bullying the weak is one. Bullying my sister is the second. You are trash is the third. Lin Yi said loudly. His face was calm, without the slightest hint of emotion. However, what he said shocked all the experts in the square, because the reason that Lin Yi gave wasn't even a reason at all. Bullying the weak was the privilege of the strong. Bullying his sister was not justified. The last reason was that Ling Tianli was trash. Was this a reason? Chapter 188. Are you done? Ling Tianli was on the verge of going berserk. He regretted letting Lin Yi speak. After waiting for Lin Yi to finish, he asked. At this moment, his killing intent had reached its peak, and he wanted to crush Lin Yi into powder. Yes, I don't want to talk anymore. A smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. He said something that almost angered him to death. While speaking, his figure disappeared strangely. When he reappeared, he had retreated 200 meters away, widening the distance between him and Ling Tianli. This distance was the best distance for the strong to fight. Well, don't talk anymore for the rest of your life. Ling Tianli's figure flashed strangely, and he crushed Lin Yi with overwhelming power. His fighting style was full of vigor. He completely showed the demeanor of a celestial being crushing a creation realm expert. The ultimate stroke. Lin Yi's cultivation realm was not as good as Ling Tianli's. His strength was not as good as Ling Tianli's. He knew this better than anyone else, but his divine thoughts were incredible, and his reaction and thinking were better than the other 5. When Ling Tianli made his move, they had already calculated their own means of fighting. The cultivation of the 5th level of creation realm broke out, and the starry sky divine technique was running. The invincible attack blessing and the divine dragon 9 changes defense. With a move of his divine thoughts, the heavenly flame sacred saber appeared in his hand. At the moment when the heavenly flame sacred saber appeared in his hand, Lin Yi held the heavenly flame sacred saber with both hands and slashed out fiercely. When the saber was slashed out, the saber radiance was all over the sky. The unparalleled saber essence twisted the space, and the saber radiance cut through the space, covering the sky above Ling Tianli in a few breaths. Ling Tianli did not take Lin Yi seriously at first. In his opinion, he was just a teenager, and he was at the 5th level of creation realm. He could kill him in one breath. But now, seeing Lin Yi's move, he was surprised. If he had not reached the celestial being realm, he would not dare to underestimate this move. But now, he really didn't take this saber to heart. Seeing the saber radiance coming down, he raised one hand, and an unparalleled power swept up. Crack, crack, the saber light instantly vanished into thin air. Ling Tianli strangely appeared in front of Lin Yi and punched him fiercely. The power of this punch was countless times stronger than that of just now. The entire space trembled in front of the fist as if it was about to collapse. In the face of this terrifying punch, Lin Yi also threw out a punch. His Celestial Emperor fist was at the pinnacle of the 3rd level, coupled with an invincible attack. Its power was terrifying. In an instant, the two fists collided and a destructive gust of wind swept out. At the same time, Lin Ye's body was also sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily onto the ground of the high platform. There was no way to make up for the difference in cultivation levels. Their talents were almost the same. However, the difference in their cultivation levels was like heaven and earth. The experts in the square watched as Lin Yi was abused. Some were shocked, while others were gloating. Most of them thought that Lin Yi had overestimated himself by provoking their eldest senior brother. He was arrogant and chose the wrong place. If he hadn't provoked their eldest senior brother with his talent, it wouldn't be impossible for him to become a super expert in the future. Ling Tianli's eyes were full of disdain and gloominess. His figure flashed as he once again charged towards Lin Yi. When fighting with Lin Yi, he didn't even bother to use martial arts. He completely crushed Lin Yi with the power and speed of his cultivation level. Really? Seeing the punch coming, Lin Yi raised his hand, and suddenly a burst of light burst out. Cold Aurora. It had been completely refined by Lin Yi. At this time, the Cold Aurora had reached the 2nd level. With one strike, it could turn into a brilliance of several meters. Wherever the brilliance passed, everything turned into nothingness. Damn it! Ling Tianli did not know what the Cold Aurora was, but he felt the threat of death. He suddenly understood that everything Lin Yi had done just now was to pave the way for this move to catch him off guard. He thought of it, but it was too late to react. Puff! The moment the fist touched the Cold Aurora, the fist was turned into nothingness by the Cold Aurora. One of his arms was cut off by the Cold Aurora, and blood gushed out. The Cold Aurora loomed where the arm was cut off. It kept eroding Ling Tianli's flesh and blood. Boom! Ling Tianli's right arm was cut off. He waved his left hand, and a strange finger force burst out. At the same time, his body disappeared strangely. When he appeared again, he was already beside Lin Yi. The finger force penetrated Lin Ye's chest. A fist landed on Lin Ye's body. Suddenly, a blood light rushed to the sky. Lin Yi was drowned in the blood light, and the air was full of a horrible breath. Almost 100,000 experts came to watch the show. They were originally there to watch the competition for the slots. They did not expect that such a horrible battle would happen before the competition for the quota began. Seeing that Ling Tianli lost an arm, and Lin Yi was beaten by Ling Tianli, they were all shocked. At this moment, they all guessed that Lin Yi had been killed. Luo Xing, Er's face was pale, and she was scared to death. Puff! Just when all the experts thought that Lin Yi had died, in the bloodlight, Lin Ye's body flashed out strangely. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body shook and almost fell to the ground. However, the blood hole that the finger force pierced through his body disappeared. His body, which had been beaten to the brink of collapse, also recovered to its original state. It was just that his entire body was extremely weak. Lin Yi appeared, and he did not die. Ling Tianli's arm was cut off, and he did not die. They were 100 meters apart, standing on the high platform, looking at each other from a distance. But neither of them was in a hurry to fight. They stared at each other coldly, and no one knew what they were thinking. Shock. There was nothing but shock. No one expected that the two, who were not supposed to fight, would fight against each other. And the result was beyond everyone's imagination. One was a teenager at the 5th level of the Fate Realm. The other was a senior fellow apprentice at the Celestial Being Realm. Such two people should have ended the battle by killing each other in seconds. But now both of them were seriously injured, and there was no clear winner. I've said it before. You are trash. Lin Yi reached out to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked at Ling Tianli with clear and wise eyes. In the battle just now, He had figured out the power of the celestial being realm. The Fate realm was no match for the celestial being realm. If he had not used the cold aurora to trick Ling Tianli, it would not have been so easy for him to hurt Ling Tianli. After all, Ling Tianli did not even use martial arts. Of course, Lin Yi was not to be trifled with. Your arrogance knows no bounds. But he is really horrible. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. Senior fellow apprentice's arm was cut off by him. That light is so magical. It should be a treasure. He is no match for Lin Yi. You should know that Lin Yi hasn't used any martial skills or weapons yet. If Lin Yi uses any martial skills or weapons, Lin Yi will die for sure. Yes, although he is not weak, he is no match for senior fellow apprentice. Senior fellow apprentice's arm was cut off. Next, he will definitely kill Lin Yi. The battle on the high platform stopped temporarily, but the discussion in the square was boiling. Chapter 189. The battle between Lin Yi and senior brother Ling Tianli stopped for the time being. The evenly matched battle was beyond the imagination of all the experts present. Indeed, they didn't expect Lin Yi to be so powerful that he could fight with senior brother Ling Tianli. Who was senior brother Ling Tianli? That was Ling Tianli, the #1 genius of the Xingxuan sect. Ling Tianli, a genius of the saintly being. Ling Tianli, a celestial being expert. Ling Tianli once killed a celestial being expert when he was in the creation realm. Ling Tianli once walked out of the netherworld purgatory. Ling Tianli was known as one of the top 10 geniuses of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Ling Tianli. There were countless legends about Ling Tianli. His existence was like a myth. He was the idol of countless experts. Although he was only 30 years old, he stood at the peak of the celestial being realm and was on an equal footing with countless experts of the older generation. Even many seniors who had lived for 100 or 200 years were not as good as him. The Xingxuan sect was the first peak master in the creation realm in thousands of years. And Lin Yi was just a newcomer, a seemingly ordinary teenager, the 5th level of the creation realm. Although he had broken through the illusory sea, he couldn't compare with senior brother Ling Tianli. However, even with such a huge gap between them, the two of them were still neck and neck in this battle. In the square, it was quiet for the time being. Ling Tianli was shocked, and his killing intent reached the limit. The teenager in front of him must die. It wasn't just for the sake of his face, but mainly to remove obstacles so that this youth wouldn't become a problem for him in the future. Besides, the two of them were already enemies. When Lin Yi grew up, he didn't have the confidence to suppress Lin Yi. Thinking of this, his eyes flashed with determination. With a flip of his hand, a jade bottle appeared in his hand. The jade bottle was opened, and a pill the size of a finger appeared. Boom! As the pill appeared, the space suddenly trembled. A terrifying aura was emitted from the pill, and the pill was shining with a magical luster. Divine elixir. On the high platform, some of the experts in the celestial being realm recognized the pill in Ling Tianli's hand and suddenly exclaimed. Divine elixir was beyond the panacea. Even in a place like the Cloud Sky Kingdom, it was rare to see a saint pill. Every divine elixir pill had miraculous effects and power. They didn't expect that Ling Tianli had a divine elixir. Ling Tianli took the divine elixir and threw it into his mouth. The divine elixir exploded in Ling Tianli's body, and he looked like he was in pain. His expression began to distort. Looking at Ling Tianli's broken arm, he found that it was recovering quickly. Sky Evolution Holy Pill. It's actually the Sky Evolution Holy Pill, a peerless saint pill. As long as you don't die, the Celestial Evolution Holy Pellet can heal you. This kind of holy pellet has been extinct since the ancient times. Elda Senior Brother has such a magical holy pellet. He has been to the netherworld purgatory. He should have obtained it there. Seeing the rapid recovery of Ling Tianli's arm, the experts present almost dropped their jaws. Everyone's eyeballs almost flew out. They never thought that the divine elixir was so magical that it could even regenerate a broken arm. Soon, someone recognized the origin and identity of the divine elixir. For a moment, all the experts looked envious and greedy, but they all knew that they didn't have the strength to snatch the eldest senior brother's divine elixir. Besides, such a divine elixir was extremely rare. It was great luck to get one. There shouldn't be a second sky evolution holy pill on Ling Tianli. From the time Ling Tianli took out the sky evolution holy pill to the recovery of Ling Tianli's arm, the whole process took less than 10 breaths. You should be proud that you can hurt me. Ling Tianli's arm recovered. He looked at Lin Yi ruthlessly. He hated Lin Yi to the core. Not only did he steal the woman he liked, but he also humiliated him. Moreover, Lin Yi had crippled his arm in front of countless experts. As the eldest senior brother, a dignified celestial being, this kind of thing was extremely embarrassing. More importantly, Lin Yi had caused him to lose a sky amplification holy pill. Xing, do you want to kill him? Lin Yi ignored Ling Tianli. Instead, he looked at Luo Xing. Luo Xing had been here for a long time. If Luo Xing hated Ling Tianli enough to kill him, he wouldn't hesitate to kill him at all costs. If Luo Xing let him go, he would teach Ling Tianli a lesson at most. After all, Ling Tianli was the eldest senior brother of the Holy Soul sect. Hearing Lin Ye's words, the experts of the Holy Soul sect were speechless. Ling Tianli was much stronger than Lin Yi. If Ling Tianli really wanted to kill Lin Yi now, Lin Yi would definitely die. And Lin Yi ignored Ling Tianli and asked the girl if she wanted to kill Ling Tianli. It wasn't hard to tell from his tone that it was not difficult to kill Ling Tianli. It mainly depended on whether the girl was happy or not. A celestial being realm expert, the #1 genius of the Holy Soul sect. His life depended on a girl's words. Arrogant, ignorant, many geniuses looked at Lin Yi disdainfully. In their opinion, Lin Yi's arrogance was too excessive, but they didn't dare to say it out. After all, Lin Yi and Ling Tianli had just fought to a draw. No matter how strong they were not necessarily Lin Yi's opponents. Of course, they didn't need to provoke Lin Yi. Brother-in-law, Xing, it will listen to you. Luo Xing answered obediently. She was as gentle as water. Even the 10 goddesses of the Shengling heavenly sect were ashamed of their inferiority before her. At this moment, countless experts were filled with envy. It was a pity that such a beautiful goddess had her heart set on Lin Yi. Okay, I want one of the 3 places in the royal feast. Lin Yi nodded. He said loudly, looking around as he spoke. Finally, his eyes fell on Ling Tianli. At this moment, Ling Tianli almost jumped up. With his status, he was humiliated in front of a young man all the time. According to Lin Ye's words, he wanted Ling Tianli's place. At the same time, he also provoked all the geniuses who competed for the place. Formless 4 extremes. Ling Tianli was so angry that he couldn't speak. All the cultivation of the celestial being realm broke out. Holy level cultivation method was running. He reached out, and a long sword appeared in his hand. 100 inscription, saint weapon. Yes, it was a 100 inscription saint weapon. An expert of sword principle with awe-inspiring sword intent. The power of the holy weapon merged with the sword intent, exuding the power to destroy heaven and earth. For a time, this space was constantly trembling and breaking and recovering, and the cycle kept repeating. There were 3 lotuses floating above Ling Tianli's head. The lotuses condensed the power of heaven and earth. He was like the son of heaven and earth. His every move carried the unparalleled power of heaven and earth. This was the form of 3 flowers at one's prominence in the celestial being realm. Only super geniuses in the celestial being realm could condense 3 flowers at one's prominence. Celestial being realm with 3 flowers at one's prominence was a real expert. There was no doubt that Ling Tianli was the most talented celestial being realm. In the Holy Soul sect, there were very few who could condense 3 flowers. Even second senior brother Zhao Yulin and third senior sister Chu Yunyan had not reached the level of 3 flowers at one's prominence. Clatter, the long sword in Ling Tianli's hand drew a destructive sword light. The sword light pierced through the space and fell over Lin Yi. Chapter 190. How dare you use a sword in front of me? Showing off in front of an expert. In the face of Ling Tianli's destructive sword light, Lin Yi didn't panic at all. On the contrary, he was extremely calm at the moment. His face was calm and collected. As he spoke, a long sword appeared in his hand. 100 inscription, saint weapon. It was also a 100 inscription, saint weapon. Sky Moon Sword. It was true Master Ling Yang's sword. After killing true Master Ling Yang, Sky Moon Sword was suitable for him to use. With this Sky Moon Sword, he could fully exert his current strength of sword principle. 9th level sword essence rose to the sky. At this moment, he was like a divine sword standing proudly between heaven and earth. The Sky Moon Sword in his hand slashed, and an unparalleled sword light went straight to Ling Tianli's sword light. Clang! It was a clear sound. The two sword lights collided. Suddenly, the unparalleled sword chi swept out, and the wind spread out. Countless cracks appeared in the space. Like a broken mirror, it shattered inch by inch. Ling Tianli's sword light was broken. Lin Yi's sword light was indomitable. Sword shield. Ling Tianling's heart trembled. This time he was really shocked. Others might not know the power of his sword, but he knew that this sword was enough to kill an expert of the same level. Even those of the older generation who had cultivated for 1 or 200 years might not be able to take it. However, in front of Lin Yi, this sword was completely unable to withstand a single blow. Seeing that he was about to be hurt by Lin Yi's sword light, Ling Tianli waved his long sword and drew out a sword shield. Boom! The sword shield finally blocked Lin Yi's sword light. But Ling Tianli was knocked back dozens of meters before he could stabilize himself. At this moment, his face was blue and purple, and he looked extremely ugly. Sword force of heaven and earth. 10,000 swords in origin. Ling Tianli's face became serious. The power of heaven and earth ran all over his body, and the cultivation of the celestial realm was displayed to the peak. He stood in the air, holding a magical sword skill with both hands. For a moment, the sword force of heaven and earth gathered. The world became strangely silent at this moment. The swords of countless experts trembled and jumped. In the end, they broke free from their owners and flew into the sky. At this moment, tens of thousands of swords were floating in the air above the Holy Spirit Square. Every single sword was at least at the level of a spiritual weapon. When gathered together, their power was indescribably terrifying. The experts present also felt the threat of death. Even the elders and the two peak leaders who had just arrived were utterly shocked. They all looked at Ling Tianli expectantly. Ling Tianli was undoubtedly the hope of the Shengling Heaven sect. The stronger he was, the better it would be for the Shengling Heavenly sect. What a powerful astral sword. A single move can cause a change in the heavens and the earth. Too powerful. Eldest senior brother is indeed powerful. I'm not his match. Only the peak master and a few of the elders would be able to withstand this attack. Lin Yi isn't bad either, but it's a pity that he met eldest senior brother. It's an honor to die in the hands of eldest senior brother. Amidst the shock, countless voices of discussion sounded in the square. All the experts stared at Ling Tianli. Countless gods' favored girls looked at their eldest senior brother with adoration. Destroy. Ling Tianli shouted softly. High above, he waved one hand. Tens of thousands of swords formed a world of sword radiance and pressed down on Lin Yi. Wherever the world of sword radiance passed, everything turned into nothingness. The scene of destruction was displayed in the eyes of all the experts. At this moment, Lin Yi was like an ant facing a giant dragon. What awaited him was the disappearance of despair. However, what shocked all the experts was that Lin Yi was not as desperate and panicked as they had imagined. In fact, he was even calmer than before. When Lin Yi was about to be drowned in the world of sword radiance, the sky moon sword in Lin Ye's hand burst out a peerless sword radiance. The sword radiance penetrated the space and illuminated the entire Shengling heaven sect. One sword radiates chilling light of 19 states. Lin Yi said faintly. The first move of the sky, sword 12 styles. At this moment, the sword radiance was peerless and illuminated the 19 provinces. All the experts only felt that the sword radiance was so dazzling that they could not open their eyes. The cold sword radiance made them feel like they were in an ice cellar. Crack! The cold sword radiance suddenly appeared. Everything between heaven and earth faded. All the experts could not open their eyes. He couldn't even release his divine sense. A cracking sound appeared in the space. After this sound, the world became silent. It was so silent that it made people feel scared. In just an instant, the cold sword radiance disappeared. Everything between heaven and earth was restored. All the experts present opened their eyes. When they saw the scene in front of them, everyone was stunned. The first genius of the Shengling heaven sect, one of the top 10 geniuses of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, Ling Tianli, an expert of the celestial being realm. Dead. That's right. He had fallen. Suspended in the air, his eyes were full of horror and unwillingness. However, there was no trace of vitality left in him. He couldn't be more dead. Tens of thousands of swords around him were all broken into pieces. What? Ling Tianli was dead? What? Tens of thousands of swords were broken into pieces. Impossible. Impossible. All the experts couldn't accept this reality at all. Who was Ling Tianli? His most powerful attack not only failed to kill Lin Yi, who was at the 5th tier of the Fate Realm, but also killed him. No matter what, it was unbelievable. But it was all true. On the other hand, Lin Yi was unscathed. Sky Moon Sword. Suspended in front of him, it devoured the sword essence and sword chi all over the sky. Whoosh! In the silent air, a gust of wind blew past. Hundreds of millions of cold sword lights burst out from Ling Tianli's body. In an instant, Ling Tianli's body turned into points and disappeared. He really disappeared. Swoosh! Swoosh! The silence disappeared. Heaven and earth returned to normal. Tens of thousands of swords turned into fragments and fell to the ground like a meteor shower. Wherever the fragments passed, they cut through the space, although they had lost a lot of power at the moment. However, if a warrior at the Voiding Realm entered this space, he would be destroyed by the sword fragments. 10 breaths. All the fragments fell. The fragments on the high platform were dazzling. This place belongs to you. Let's compete for the remaining 2 places. Of course, you can also choose to challenge me. Lin Yi landed and appeared beside Luo Xing, and Silent Soul. He glanced at the dozen or so geniuses on the high platform and said faintly. His tone was casual, but it was extremely awkward in everyone's ears. They were the geniuses of the Holy Soul sect. But Lin Ye's tone sounded like he was their elder. Could they challenge him? How? Even their senior brother Ling Tianli was killed by one sword strike. How could they have the courage to challenge Lin Yi? Senior brother Lin. Senior brother Lin. Senior brother Lin. There was a burst of cheers in the Holy Soul Square. The whole square was like boiling water. At this moment, only senior brother Lin's voice could be heard. Lin Ye's popularity reached a peak. Chapter 191. Lin Ye's name resounded throughout the Holy Spirit Square. He was the symbol of the Holy Spirit sect's monstrous experts. What was monstrous? Lin Yi was monstrous. What was heaven-defying? Lin Yi was heaven-defying. What was strong? Lin Yi was strong. An invincible monstrous expert was invincible in the same realm. He could even cross realms to kill his opponents. Even Ling Tianli, the #1 genius of the Holy Spirit sect, was killed by him. Who else could be more monstrous than him? Moreover, he was only a 17-year-old youth at the 5th level of the creation realm. Compared to other old monsters who had been cultivating for 100 or 200 years, his cultivation time was like that of a baby. However, His strength was comparable to those old monsters who had cultivated for 100 or 200 years. Let's watch their battle. Let's broaden our horizons, Lin Yi said to Silent Soul and Luo Xing. As he spoke, he walked towards the seats next to the high platform. Luo Xing and Silent Soul, two beautiful women, followed him on his left and right. Who knew how many geniuses fell in love with them? Countless proud daughters of heaven looked at Lin Yi with eyes full of worship. However, when they saw Silent Soul and Luo Xing's faces, they could only sigh, because the two women were too beautiful. Soon, the three of them sat on the high platform. It's so lively. When Lin Yi and the other two were seated, a loud voice sounded in the void. His voice was like a clap of thunder. When it reached the ears of all the experts, the voice carried with it a supreme saint's aura. Feeling the supreme saint's aura, the experts in the square roughly knew who had come, because in the Holy Spirit sect, there were only a few people who had saint's aura. Moreover, the person who presided over the competition was definitely the sect leader. Sect leader. Sect leader. Immediately, countless experts bowed to the void. Everyone had a respectful look on their faces. Even the monstrous experts on the high platform, who felt superior to the others, stood up and bowed respectfully. Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. He understood that no matter how monstrous he was only a genius. In front of the Shengling Heavenly Sect Master, he was just an ant. In the midst of the greeting, Lin Yi noticed that a cloud had appeared in the sky. An elegant middle-aged man stood on the cloud. This middle-aged man didn't look like an expert at all. Instead, he looked more like a teacher. Yes, that was the feeling he gave off. Of course, Lin Yi didn't dare to treat him as a teacher. This was an invincible expert. I've seen the battle just now. Lin Yi's talent and strength are indeed incomparable to Ling Tianli. He deserves one of the spots. You guys can compete for the other 2 spots. The sect master waved his hand, and the cloud disappeared. He landed and said loudly. Then, the sect leader walked to the main seat on the high platform and sat down with a smile on his face. It felt like a spring breeze was caressing his face, making people not wary of him at all. Lin Yi knew that the more he acted like this, the more dangerous it was. As the saying goes, a dog that bites doesn't bark. For a terrifying expert like the sect master, he had kept everything within himself. If they fought, it would be devastating. He couldn't help but look at the sect leader. The moment he looked at the sect leader seemed to have known what he was going to do. That pair of deep eyes had been waiting for him. 2 pairs of eyes collided. Lin Yi's heart couldn't help but tremble. That gaze was like the sea, like a volcano, like purgatory, like a glacier. Whoosh illusion. It was an illusion. Lin Yi's divine consciousness in his sea of consciousness shook, and he withdrew his mind. He also withdrew his gaze. He took a deep breath. The sect leader's gaze was too terrifying. If his divine consciousness hadn't reached level 50, the sect leader's gaze would have consigned him to eternal damnation. Fortunately, his divine consciousness was strong, and there was a treasure like the soul suppression cauldron to guard his sea of consciousness. While Lin Yi was shocked, he didn't expect the sect leader to be even more shocked than him. The sect leader also didn't expect Lin Yi's willpower to be so terrifying. He actually broke free from his illusion in an instant. More importantly, Lin Yi almost made his illusion collapse. It was the first time he had encountered such a thing. How could a young man in the creation realm be so monstrous? It was simply unimaginable. Lin Yi and the sect leader acted as if nothing had happened. They watched the battle on the high platform. Rumble, rumble, Lin Yi killed Ling Tianli and got a spot. The other 15 monstrous experts went to compete for the remaining 2 spots. These 15 monstrous experts were all super existences in the celestial realm. They could destroy heaven and earth with a raise of their hands. Luo Xing, and Silent Soul's cultivation were too low. They couldn't see anything at all in such a battle. However, the battle of these monstrous experts was of great help to Lin Yi. After all, the celestial realm was already standing at the peak of martial arts. The battle of these monstrous experts in the celestial realm could only be encountered by chance. Their battle experience was even more amazing. For a time, Lin Yi was fascinated by it. Unknowingly, time passed. After 2 hours, all the battles were over. The winners of the 2 spots were beyond everyone's expectations. One was the 3rd senior sister. The other was Huang Tianxiao, a monstrous expert for the previous era. The spots had been decided. Everyone disperse. The competition was over. The sect leader stood up and announced loudly. After speaking, he waved one hand. A magical force swept over. Lin Yi, Chu Tianyin, and Huang Tianxiao were swept up and taken by the sect leader to the depths of the Shengling heavenly sect. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. The experts in the square also dispersed. Miss Xing'er, come with me to the Lingzhen courtyard to wait for the young master. Silent Soul said to Luo Xing. Okay, sister Silent Soul. How do you know my brother-in-law? Luo Xing nodded. Just now, Lin Yi was taken away by the sect leader. She was also going to the place where Lin Yi cultivated to wait for Lin Yi to come back. She was curious. How did this peerless beauty get to know her brother-in-law? More than that, a trace of wariness rose in his heart towards solitary spirit. Her brother-in-law was an unparalleled genius. There were countless beauties who liked him. She had to keep an eye on him for her sister. Moreover, the beautiful woman in front of her was unparalleled in charm. She believed that no man would not be moved by her. Even her brother-in-law might be moved by her. She was confident in her looks, but Silent Soul's combination of charm and holiness was something she did not have. The young master and your sister left the Yinshui kingdom. They were preparing to leave the Sky Sea realm to find you and Ling Er. They accidentally found the heart of the sword in the Sky Sea city and entered the Sky Sea sect by chance. They were planning to leave the Sky Sea sect. But the demon sect released the Demon King. The entire Sky Sea realm was in chaos. The young master used the divine sword to kill the Demon King, erase the demon sect, and suppress the demon sect. In the Sky Sea realm, the young master is a godlike existence. Silent Soul had a look of worship on his face. He recalled everything that happened in the Sky Sea realm. At the side, Luo Xing was completely mesmerized. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.